All right.
Penny, can you shut off your mic though?
Oh, sure.
Say what?
It gives a, so you know, Penny, it gives a feedback when you're in, I think that's her mic, or is it somewhere? Oh, this is
Might be
James.
mine. It was open.
All right, call to order the regular council meeting for Tuesday, December 1st. And first order is to adopt the agenda.
Your Worship, we have,
Councilor McKenzie.
Your Worship,
Yes.
we have a couple of changes to the agenda. So
right.
we are removing item 9I, which is development variance permit 011 15738 Whiskey Cove. Two attachments were missing from the report that was presented to the public or distributed to the public. And so we are re-advertising it with a deferral to December 15th.
So it's deferred to December 15th?
Yeah, but yes, but it's not going to be presented tonight. And the other one is the removal of notice on title, which is item 10.2.
Yes.
And that's not coming back to council because under the provisions of the community charter, section 58, I believe, if the individual that has the notice on title has met the conditions,
Right.
and they've been approved by the building inspector and the fee has been paid, then it goes directly to the Land Title Act for removal.
All right, thank you.
I'm wondering, Mr. Mayor, if we could also add a discussion of the COVID response.
So who's going to do that?
So I can make that introduction, I guess, to council verbally, and that can be under 11. It would be after the strategic priorities, Your Worship. So it would be 11.4.
Very good. Addition.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Gamble. All right. That is the case. And moved as amended. Councilor Scarrow and Councilor Arnon, those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Having got that done, then adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of November 17. Councilor McKenzie and Councilor Koza, errors or omissions? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
And no report from me, no announcements. And the delegation is before you tonight for the final transportation plan, regional cycling and trails master plan. You gotta bring them in. Thank you, Trev. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. So today we're bringing the
Do you have to state your name?
Oh, sure. Should I take this for a second?
Yes. Yeah.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. So today we're bringing the final version of the transportation plan. So today we're presenting myself, Rafael Villarreal. I'm the administrator of the STPCO. We're also going to have presenting this with me, Cameron Noonan. He's our transportation planner. And virtually we have Mariah Van Ser, the project manager for the regional plan, and Stephen Power. He is the transportation lead of HDR, so he's the consultant that helped us to develop this plan.
Do we have them, Trev? All right, good.
Good.
Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not.
Oh, it took us a
From
little while,
our end.
but they're there. No, it was actually our end.
Yeah.
It's working fine.
Good.
So regional cooperation takes time. So it's been about over 2.5 years working in this plan, and many times us here in this council, and also having workshops with our LGA board to get to this point. And there were a lot of engagement happening as part of this plan. A lot of times, the challenge is that it's regional cooperation. So it's getting to a point that most of the parts are comfortable with the final product. And that's what we have today after we presented the draft version probably in the summer this year. So today we're bringing, again, a quick update on the STPCO. Then we have Cameron Noonan presenting the result of the 2018 Okanagan Travel Survey. You might wonder why 2018. This survey is one of the most complex surveys that we can usually do. And it takes a few years just to compile the data and to get it out. So here it is. Then we have Mariah is going to be presenting the RTP Engagement Summary, the last engagement that we did on the plan before moving kind of to this final version. And then Stephen Power is going to be presenting kind of the changes that we did to the plan after we presented the draft to this council in the summer. And then Mariah is going to be closing the presentation. So regional governance, as we mentioned, regional governance take time. And the STPCO has been with us since 2013 and is going to evolve to something different. And I think Matt is going to be talking about that. So some functions are going to be transitioned to the regional district, and others are gonna stay with each jurisdiction. But one of the outcomes of the STPCO is going to be this plan. And the idea when we think about implementing this plan is that there's going to be a follow-up through the regional district, but the idea is that it gets aligned to a lot of our local plans. And that's one of the things that the city of Kelowna is doing, is aligning a lot of the outcomes of this plan with our own local plans, and also informing some of the planning that is happening with the ministry, at the provincial level, so with the Ministry of Transportation. So now I'm going to pass it to Cameron Noonan, that is going to present us the Okanagan Travel Survey.
Thank you, Rafael. Your Worship, the 2018 Okanagan Travel Survey is the third survey of its kind done in the region. We try to do one every 5 years as a kind of census for transportation. In this round, nearly 9,000 randomly selected residents, including 600 Lake Country residents, logged the trips they made on a fall weekday. The survey provides a comprehensive and statistically representative picture of how people move around the region, which is both extremely valuable and difficult to get through other means. For example, we have ongoing efforts to count the number of vehicles on the road, the number of people on buses or on bike paths, but household travel surveys are one of the only ways to answer questions such as where are those people going and for what reason, and how do those patterns vary by demographic groups. Questions which provide a deeper understanding of current conditions and are necessary to make more informed predictions of how things might change in the future. Before diving into the key findings, I want to highlight that this new data has been incorporated into the final versions of the Regional Transportation Plan and its supporting plans. And most importantly, while there are some interesting trends, many things haven't changed since 2013, particularly at a regional level. Kelowna is still the economic center of the region, and driving is still the main way that people get around. And this is because regional travel patterns are the products of decades of land use and transportation decisions, along with broad societal trends. Slide. However, looking more closely at the data, some interesting findings emerge. One of the most significant is that the average number of trips residents make on a typical day, what we call the trip rate, has been falling. This is a consistent trend in both the 2013 and 2018 surveys. So while the regional population has increased by 20% since 2007, the number of driving trips made on a typical weekday has only increased by 5%. Several factors may be contributing to this trend, including an aging population, changing nature of work, or a rise in e-commerce, to name a few. And the COVID-19 pandemic has almost certainly accelerated this trend, though it remains to be seen whether this is a temporary or more durable change. Decreases in trip rate are not even across demographic groups or across the region. So for example, trip rates fell more among both younger and older adults compared to middle-aged people. And trip rates also fell faster among residents outside of Kelowna. So for example, despite robust population growth in Lake Country of around 10% between 2013 and 2018, the number of trips made by Lake Country residents only grew by about 5%. On the other hand, the total number of trips made by West Side residents actually fell slightly between 2013 and 2018. While residents are making fewer trips, these trips are longer on average, which is why you can see that the total distance driven, or VKT, region-wide, has increased by 13%, with only 5% more driving trips made. VKT is growing more slowly than population, but still increasing overall. And this has real implications for both congestion and greenhouse gas emissions. Another key finding is that while driving remains the way most people get around, there has been a 2% shift region-wide towards sustainable modes such as walking, biking, and transit since 2007. Between 2013 and 2018, mode share remained relatively stable, which means that efforts to encourage mode shift are roughly keeping up with population growth. Moving forward, STPO staff are preparing a webinar for December 8th for interested participants who wish to better understand the results and how to use the data. And this survey is a resource that we, along with staff from partner municipalities and academics, are excited to explore for years to come. And now I'll pass it on to Brian Van Zer, project manager for the RTP, to introduce the plan.
Any questions for? No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Cam. Can everyone hear and see me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. All right, so I will just say next slide to advance the slides, if that works. So thank you so much, Your Worship and members of council. Today marks a major milestone, as Raphael mentioned. We have been working on these plans in collaboration with our regional partners and providing you with updates since early 2018. And today it is truly, truly my pleasure to share with you that final versions of the Regional Transportation Plan and its supporting plans, the Regional Bicycling and Trails Master Plan, and the Regional Disruptive Mobility Strategy are ready for endorsement. Next slide. And actually, we're one behind, so next slide. Perfect, thank you. All right, development of the plan went through 5 key phases, including establishing our shared regional vision and goals for transportation, which started with visioning workshops, if you recall, with each of the partner councils in spring of 2018, to then looking at data and examining the existing and future conditions on our regional transportation network, to then developing and evaluating potential projects and investments, to discussing how best to work together as a region to implement the plan, and then finally to creating the draft and final regional transportation plan. Next slide. Opportunities for partner, stakeholder, and public engagement have occurred each step of the way. To guide the development of the plan, the STPCO Planning and Technical Committee, comprised of staff at each of the partner jurisdictions, has met 8 times since the plan kickoff to review draft deliverables and provide feedback and guidance to the project team. Additionally, presentations have been made to the Regional Council 6 times, with 4 additional presentations to the STPCO Local Government Advisory Board, in total representing 39 presentations to elected officials around the region at critical planning milestones. And then finally, 3 major public consultations helped shape the plan's vision and goals, helped identify and refine potential projects and improvements, and helped review and refine the draft plan. Next slide. Together, the plans identify transportation projects and priorities that will help build and maintain a healthy, thriving, and connected future for the Central Okanagan region over the next 20 years. Next slide. They set the direction for Central Okanagan governments to work together to prepare for future population growth, help people of all ages and abilities get around, reduce the growth of traffic congestion and greenhouse gas emissions, and to help the region's economic recovery post-COVID-19. Next slide. The interconnected recommendations for projects, programs, and policies in the plans will help connect people and places across the region, help improve the movement of people and goods, achieve fast and reliable transit, create a safe and convenient regional bicycling and trails network, and incorporate new mobility options. ultimately helping to create a region where more people can choose sustainable and affordable transportation options. Key features of the plans include creating a fast and reliable transit spine along the Highway 97 corridor, adding 81 new kilometers of regional bicycling and trail facilities, and investing in transportation improvements to better connect people to regional destinations, such as UBC Okanagan and the Kelowna International Airport, among others. Next slide. Moving forward, the long-range, high-level plan establishes a framework of priorities over the next 20 years so Central Okanagan governments can plan and seek funding collaboratively as a unified region. Next slide. Drafts of the plans were presented to each of the STPCO partner councils last summer, including to Lake Country Council on July 7th. Next slide. This was followed by public engagement in August to invite input from Central Okanagan residents on the draft plans. A virtual open house and online questionnaire was available from August 4th to 23rd, and 2 live video panel discussions were hosted on August 19th and 20th. In total, 340 people from across the region provided over 1,200 comments on the draft plans, and the responses were also weighted to mirror the distribution of the population by both age and geography. In addition, individual stakeholder groups provided comments on specific topic areas. Next slide. The opportunity for residents to participate and provide comments was circulated through social media, videos, email, the Smart Trips website, newspaper ads, and news releases. And incentives to participate included a prize draw as well as gift cards. Next slide. Special attention was given to reach out to people in each part of the Central Okanagan. And to do this, each partner government created videos of their mayor, chief, or chair promoting the engagement opportunity. And certainly thank you for that. And these videos were then shared through social media. Next slide. And in terms of what we heard, people were asked how well they think the regional transportation plan achieves key outcome areas. And the outcome the most respondents marked the RTP as achieving well was creating a safe and convenient bicycle and trail network, followed by moving people and goods more efficiently. Next slide. For the 1,200 open-ended comments, the project team read each of them and developed a list of themes based on their content. Each time a theme was mentioned in a comment, it was tallied. The top themes that were mentioned most often included, they're shown there on the screen, and included overall support for the regional transportation plan, along with specific support frequently mentioned for active transportation infrastructure, sustainable transportation modes, completing the Okanagan Rail Trail, and for development of the West Side Trail. Additionally, specific support was frequently mentioned for the proposed improvements along Glenmore Road, dedicated transit lanes along Harvey Avenue, for extending transit service geographically, and for park and rides to help people get to and from transit. Participants also expressed support for expanding ride-hailing options in the region, with respondents expressing both support for new mobility options and encouraging some caution with rapidly evolving new technologies. And a complete and more detailed summary of all of the engagement activities and the results, including verbatim comments, has been posted live on the Smart Trips website. And the feedback we heard was used to help prepare the final versions of the regional transportation plan and its supporting plans that we are sharing with you for endorsement today. And so with that, I will pass it on to Steve Power with HDR to share with you what's changed since you last saw the draft plans.
Great, thanks, Mariah. Yeah, I'm going to take a quick run through the changes that have occurred in the since the draft. They're not substantive in terms of content, but there have been a few additions and a few minor changes made. Okay, so next slide. So one of the areas we wanted to make sure we did was recognize the provincial plans and targets and create some alignment between this plan and how this plan will help achieve some of the major provincial initiatives, such as the economic framework, Clean BC, Move, Commute, Connect, and in particular, how the plan helps support those provincial objectives around things like greenhouse gas emissions and doubling the number of trips taken by active transportation by 2030. Next slide. We've added a preamble, which is in many ways an executive summary and it's added some clarity around the fast and reliable transit spine, given it a little more prominence. Nothing has changed in that regard, but we have put it up front now and made it a little bit more prominent. And so that spine really speaks to the use of shoulder for buses on the west side, the introduction of an eastbound transit lane for buses on the bridge in the morning, dedicated transit lanes on Harvey Avenue, and a transit priority corridor on the future Hollywood Road extension from Highway 97 to UBCO. Next slide. So Cameron went through a pretty good description of the 2018 Okanagan Travel Survey results. We didn't have those results when we presented the draft to you in the summer. We have them now, and so we've gone back and done an update to the existing and future conditions chapter, updated that data, updated the findings. We found that there really was no change to any of our findings or recommendations as a result of that. And certainly the Okanagan Travel Survey results supported some of the recommendations around faster, more reliable transit, particularly for those for the longer regional trips. Next slide. Another element that's been updated since we presented the draft to you is the future of STPCO. At that point, it was still a bit up in the air. There have been further discussions with the Local Government Advisory Board, and including wrapping up of the STPCO in its current form by January 2021, and then replacing that function and the main function being the implementation of the Regional Transportation Plan with a Regional Technical Committee administered by the RDCO, but continue to be initially facilitated with some help by City of Kelowna staff. And then, with some initiatives to resolve cost sharing over the next couple of years, and introduction of 2 dedicated RDCO board meetings around transportation. Not dedicated, but focus on them. Next slide. We've also added a section around monitoring the RTP. One of the reasons this wasn't included in the initial draft was because we didn't know what the governance structure was going to be and whether or not there would be any organization actually undertake the monitoring. Now that we know that there is some structure in place, we've added a section in that deals with some of the key metrics that need to be measured, things like greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle kilometers and trip lengths and mode splits, that sort of thing, and have identified some of the data sources. Certainly the Okanagan Travel Survey that Cameron talked about, the regional travel model that was developed and further refined as part of the Regional Transportation Plan, any additional data collection that we need to support those metrics, and also monitoring of other databases out there that exist, like the Journey to Work that was used to help some of our existing and future conditions. So with that, these are the changes that have been made since the draft, as well as some polishing up and prettying up of the document. And the final document is now on the Smart Trips website. Okay, next slide. So we also did some updates to the Regional Bicycling and Trails Master Plan, and the original RBTMP, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the Regional Bicycle and Trails Master Plan was an appendix to the Regional Transportation Plan. We've now spun that out and made it a standalone document. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, this document updates the 2012 Regional Active Transportation Plan. It is fully aligned with the Regional Transportation Plan, and probably one of the key things that you'll see in there is a recommendation for 81 kilometers of new active transportation facilities. Next slide. Now, with this being a standalone document, we have done the same as we did in the RTP. We've got a separate section on alignment with provincial plans and targets, and certainly the doubling of trips taken by active transportation by 2030 is supported with the recommendations of this of the Regional Bicycling and Trails Master Plan. Next slide. Also, again, with it being a standalone document, and to make sure that we are staying current, we did update the chapter on the current status of active transportation to reflect the 2018 Okanagan Travel Survey results. And again, like the RTP, we found that the recommendations of the draft RBTMP remain very relevant, and particularly around creating a safe and convenient regional bicycling and trails network that connects the region. It's really quite important to helping support more biking and walking trips. Next slide. The images on here haven't changed. The only thing we've really done in this section is just provided alignment or clarified the alignment with the BC Actor Transportation Design Guide. The BC Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure has recently come out with a new design guide, and we just gave some clarity to align both our document and their design guide. Next slide. And then finally, there's been a few minor updates to some of the network elements based on input we received from the engagement process and from some of the some of the partner municipalities, as well as provincial and local bicycling groups. And like the RTP, we've done some final editing and formatting to just make the document a little bit more readable. And again, the full document is available on the Smart Trips website. And with that, back to Mariah.
I have a couple of questions for you first, if you can. Councillor Reid.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a note to say that the links that were sent through in the document don't actually work. So, but luckily we can access it on the website. My question would be around the bicycling network. I know when we came here before, we had a lot of conversation about the Glenmore Road, and I noticed it was key on the word cloud there is support for Glenmore Road, yet in the plan that mentions the connection behind Ellison Lake as part of the rail trail, but it acknowledges there's zero timeline for the development of that. So we are still left with a disconnected cycle network because we have no timeline for that, and the Glenmore neighborhood does not have a commuting level bicycle network. It's second priority on the list. It's marked as a bike accessible shoulder, and I'm concerned with the level of traffic that goes up and down that road with the trucks, that really we should be looking at something more than just a bike accessible shoulder, because it seems from the pictures narrow and quite dangerous. And if we're really serious about using bikes as a way to get in and out of work, then that Glenmore connection with the volume of people on that side of the valley, I think I'm just disappointed that it hasn't moved on from our discussion we had this summer. So appreciate any comments on that.
Councillor Ireland has some comments, and then you can combine them, okay? And Councillor Gamble, you want to speak to that as well? Okay. So Councillor Ireland.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I read through this extensively, looking for and hoping for some sort of change. And I mean, I think that you've regionally, you've let everybody down in terms of the bicycling transport. I mean, you can't lower trips if there's not a route to go on a bicycle. And there is not, at this date in time, there is not a route between here and Kelowna. There's not a safe route other than Highway 97 or Glenmore. Neither which is safe, not even remotely close. And I think the point we were trying to make, which I think has fallen on totally deaf ears, is that Glenmore is incredibly important as a bike route. The rail trail will not take up the slack for that. The rail trail is not paved. Most people that commute on a bike use a road bike, so it's not suitable for road bikes. So, and the other point of the fact is that the majority of the population is living on the west side of the highway. That means they have to cross the highway, which in Lake Country is completely unsafe. They have no method to connect to downtown Kelowna other than through Glenmore. So I don't think we put near enough attention on Glenmore. I think that, quite frankly, the bicycle part of this is, you know, you talk about Clean BC and all those things. I don't think you've achieved anything. And I think that in 30 years, people are going to come back and look at it and say, what the hell were you guys doing? You know, everybody wants to improve bicycles. You say that all the way through, but you haven't done that. And further, when you look at the prioritization of the bike trails, you have the rail trail as urgent priority and Glenmore as a medium priority. Okay, the rail trail is done, right? It's done. Of course, there has to be things sorted out, but those are not sort of things that you're sorted out. We have to wait for senior government to approve that and get it over with. But essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's done. Working out Glenmore as a trail is going to be very difficult. So I think, I can't understand why that's not a high priority. I just don't understand it. And frankly, you don't have my support in this at all.
Councillor Gamble, and then we'll let the.
Thanks, and I appreciate the presentation, and I know that you've worked very hard on this. But I do agree with what Councillor Ireland has said, and my thought when I read the presentation which you had sent us was, how is this benefiting our community? If we are truly going to be partners in this regional plan, how does it benefit our community? Every partner should see a benefit. Otherwise, there is really no reason to be in that partnership, right? And I mean, you know, I know Kelowna's staff is going to be sort of at the head of it, but we feel, I think, as a group that there are issues that are extremely important to us, and that east-west crossing of our community is really vital. How we access, you know, Kelowna is going to be really, really important. And so I'm not happy with the way that it's being presented right now. I would like to see some work be done on that and have it come back to us. And then my question I had, it was mentioned with somebody, I believe it was Steve mentioned this, extending transit geographically. Great idea. What are we talking about? Because that is something that we want to see in our community. That's a big priority for us, but I didn't hear that really developed very much. I would like to see that. You know, we're so limited, we don't really have much taxi service or anything here in our community. How can we access regional transit more effectively? Right now, it's not that effective. And in fact, I heard the other day that the French immersion kids cannot use the city buses to go to the French immersion secondary school in Kelowna. I was so shocked at that, and I didn't realize. I thought the timing had been fixed on that with the transit system. It hasn't. So what a disincentive that is. Anyway, so maybe I could get some answers to that.
Thank you. Leave it up to you, Raphael.
Your Worship, I'm just going to start. Oh, sorry, mask. Just going to start with two good questions. The first one is Glenmore and the rail trail. We're not preventing Glenmore from getting further improved, but part of the realities that we're facing was like, what are Steve is going to elaborate a little bit on this. It's like, what are the budgets, what are the things that we can do within kind of the timeline that we have? The rail trail is not finalized yet, and that's one of the options. I agree. Glenmore always has a good, high profile, but the reality is like, we needed to be fairly realistic of what are the things that can happen. But the plan is not really preventing us from moving further in Glenmore at some point. It's just like within the timeline, it was difficult kind of to secure funding to get there. However, it's never saying like Glenmore cannot be at the next level. And Steve is going to talk a little bit about that. In terms of transit, there is, Steve was probably going to talk about that. There is a transit hub in Lake Country, and the idea again is of course kind of to increase the level of transit in Lake Country. But I'm going to leave it to Steve if you want to, Steve, answer a little bit about the Glenmore and transit.
Yeah, certainly. I'll start with Glenmore, and it's important to remember that Glenmore is not just in the RTP as an active transportation route, but we also recognize it needs some improvement. And in doing so, when you improve the roadway, we believe that you should improve it with shoulders that are bicycle accessible. So it's not that. To me, this is not an either or. You should be doing both when you do that. You know, don't go and upgrade the road and leave the crappy shoulders that you have there now. Fix that. Make it bicycle accessible. Your serious commuter cyclists actually will prefer to be on a shoulder. As Raphael said, it doesn't preclude anybody from going ahead and building a multi-use pathway along it. It's a very difficult build. You need to build a lot of multi-use pathway for a lot of money to get any single benefit. So we focused on where we could get the best return for the money that gets spent and get the connection. And that, we believe, still is finishing the rail trail. If you just decide to pave that, that's fine. I mean, that would be okay. In fact, I know of places where they leave half gravel and half paved. You could do that. There's all kinds of opportunities. But in terms of, you know, where we get our best return for the money that you spend, because multi-use pathways are not cheap. They're very expensive, particularly when you have to deal with open ditches on a rural cross section. You know, on a road like Glenmore, they're very expensive. However, for a fairly short piece, and we know there's issues around OKIB and the reserve status, but once that gets done, you then have a continuous route. We think that should still be your first priority, to get a connection and get something in place that will get you that connection. Our first priority at the regional level was to develop a key spine, and we've done that through the entire central Okanagan. Certainly, the regional plan does not include every active transportation facility, and the intent is that the regional spine or the regional core network helps give you something to hang your own local network off of. The connections across the highway really do need to be embedded into your own networks to create those connections, just as they are with West Kelowna, just as they are at WFN, and just as they are in the city of Kelowna. So the intent is not that the regional network address every single need, but rather that it addresses those important regionally significant needs. We understand that the desire for Glenmore. There's a lot of challenges with building a multi-use pathway along Glenmore and a lot of expense. If that is something that Lake Country and would probably have to be Kelowna think jointly is really important, then perhaps that is something you can still add. It's certainly, just because it isn't in this plan or it isn't identified as being core, doesn't mean you can never do it. This is not a statutory plan, it's a guidance document, and if it is that important, then I would suggest, I really do think that you need to get that rail trail finished, get yourself a connection that can be done within a few years. If that gets done and is popular, then I think there's probably good justification to advance something along Glenmore. But our recommendation is keep the pressure on, keep your foot in the gas and getting the rail trail piece done so that you get that connection, you get something there that can be achieved within a few years, because a Glenmore multi-use trail is going to cost you a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of challenge, and it's going to be a lot easier to do as you upgrade Glenmore Road. So nothing says it can't get added in the future, and particularly I would say if the rail trail ends up being a great success, that gives you a lot more support to go and do something on Glenmore. With regard to the transit piece, Raphael mentioned the mobility hub, which I think is important. One of the challenges with getting sort of more frequent transit to a place is you have to build ridership, and it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, right? In order to build ridership, you need the buses to come there. You need some frequency, but in order to justify and pay for the frequency, you need people to ride the bus. So what we need to do is find ways to collect enough riders and get them into that point. So one of the ways is this mobility hub, which would have a park and ride incorporated. It might have other ways to transfer in. Another thing we have recommended that be seriously looked at, in particular for Lake Country and Peachland, is on-demand transit. So basically, kind of like an Uber service, except more like an Uber pool, where you might have a smaller community bus that picks people up on an on-demand basis and brings them to that mobility hub. In doing so, what you're doing, instead of having the bus that runs all the way into town have to go all and through circuitous routing throughout the community, you can bring a lot more people to it. And as you can bring more people to a single point, that helps justify the more frequent service over time. So our recommendation is that we continue to monitor, and when the time is right, look at expanding frequent service and possibly rapid bus to Lake Country. But in order to do that, we have to build the ridership, so that the chicken and egg have to get aligned. So that means mobility hub, so that people can either drive or use other forms of transit, and the on-demand transit happens, as well as land use change within land use growth within Lake Country to help support that. So you bring all those pieces together, we can start to get you that higher level of transit. But there's, like I said, we've got to sort of get all the pieces together and well aligned.
If I could just follow up a little bit.
I have other speakers, Penny.
Oh, I just wanted to counter just one comment about the Okanagan Rail Trail. I think Councillor Ireland had said it's finished, and that is definitely something that we consider that it is in our community. We value the sort of rustic nature of it, and we do not at this point want to see it paved.
Okay. I wanted to hear if Mariah was all right with what had the response previously?
Oh, sure, yeah. I can pipe in with a couple thoughts here if that's appropriate. Yeah, just to highlight some of what Steve was saying about transit. There was that question about where are those transit service recommendations. Just to guide you all, you can see in section 5.1, where did it go? 5.13. It's in the recommended programs and services section. Everything Steve talked about is itemized there in bullets. So we talk about the demand responsive transit service in Peachland and Lake Country and the west side and some of the more rural communities. And we do talk specifically about extending rapid bus transit service to Peachland and Lake Country once population employment densities are high enough to make those feasible. And there's some discussion of how that could be accomplished. So that is in the plan. And, you know, of course, it's hard to find all these details maybe sometimes. So just wanted to provide more clarity on where you can find those transit service recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Back to active transportation, Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I just wanted to come back on some of those comments around the Glenmore intersection, because I think there is still dissonance in the plan between the stated support for Glenmore and what's written in there, and then kind of said, well, if you want to do it, you can, kind of thing. Because the plan itself says there is no high quality connection between Kelowna and Lake Country. This limits the feasibility of active transportation trips to and within the eastern portion of the region. And then it goes on to say, as Councillor Arlen pointed out, that the discussions around the rail trail are between two governmental authorities, the federal government of Canada and the government of the OKIB. That is not something that we as councillors and as a municipality have control over. We can advocate, but we can't control it. And the plan seems to acknowledge that by saying there is no specified time frame for this complex project and currently no comfortable route around this proposed section. And I think that comfortable is very important, because in order to promote active transportation, it has to be comfortable to use, it has to be safe to use, it has to be accessible to the key users. So I think neglecting the parallel route down to Glenmore and relegating it to a secondary route, I do question what is the value to Lake Country in terms of the active, the sustainable transportation partnership, because it doesn't deliver that crucial link that we need and doesn't advocate for it strongly. So if we do go for funding and they point to this plan, then the government who are going to, municipal or provincial, can go, well, your own plan doesn't tell you it's important. It says it's secondary. So I feel it should have at least equal billing. And if there's a way to get that in there, then let's do that before we sign off on it.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, look, I agree. I don't think that any of the points that you made back really cut any ice. The rail trail's done. It is at a higher level, as we've discussed. It's a priority in the terms that it's going through the motions. So what are we doing? We're doing nothing, actually, because we relegated this. And as Councillor Reid said, anybody looking at our plan would say, well, that's just a secondary plan. That's not important. You said yourself that this plan is more visionary than anything else. Well, I don't see, I'd say that this plan lacks vision completely. Like, we understand it's going to cost a lot of money. And it's going to be difficult. It's a narrow corridor. It's a problem. That's why it needs the plan and a vision to get started and having it looked at now. Because if we get down the road, it's going to be harder and it's going to cost more. So if we don't start working on that plan to say, hey, this is how we're going to get there. I mean, financially, yeah, we don't have the money to do this at this point, but we don't even have the plan. So, you know, I just find that all, you know, I don't want to be rude, but I find all your comments about Clean BC and all those things and replacing cars with active transportation. There's nothing in this plan that does that, not for this community and not for half of Kelowna, because that route does not exist and you don't even prioritize it, right? So I just don't buy that at all. And I don't see, you know, if it's a visionary plan that doesn't have budgets attached to it and doesn't have funding attached to it, then we should be shooting for what we think is really going to be what we need in the future. And I don't think that this even comes close to that. Now, On another topic, just before we go, there's an elephant in the room about transit, and I'm just going to address it. I know that there's nothing that we can do about it, but maybe we should start talking about it. Because one of the big problems that we have with transit is it's not working well. And, you know, Lake Country people don't take it because it's not reliable. And the problem with the reliability is because we have a contractor that runs transit as a business and is trying to take a profit out of this. It's trying to get a profit out of transit that we're all funding. We want it to work. They don't care as long as they make the money. So I don't know how we go about that, but I think that this transit system needs to be run by BC Transit. It needs to be run by that or by the communities. Certainly having someone who's taken a profit out of it, because it just doesn't work. I mean, if, you know, the younger generation in this community, okay, my daughter is one of those groups of people taking the transit regularly to the university because that was the best way, and quite frankly, we made her to take transit because it was the thing to do. But it's so unreliable that you can't make classes. So you keep on training group after group after group in Lake Country not to take transit because unless you have all the time in the world, it's not functioning for you. And I'm not blaming you or the city of Kelowna or anybody, but this is a profit-based business by a company that's not even Canadian. And it's a problem.
So much for a master plan.
So, Worship, I want to try to answer the two these are comments. One thing is we did make a huge effort just kind of to wear the two hats, like City of Kelowna and regional partnership. The plan has to be visionary, but at the same time, it needs to be realistic. And one of the things that we try to address really with the Claremore option is giving an option that something we can actually deliver at some point. The total cost of the plan is about $85 million. A connection from Kelowna to Glenmore, like it will just take all the budget of the plan, a good chunk of the budget. And that's something we have to be realistic. We put something like that just takes a good portion of the total budget of the plan. It just starts just to be, I know it's visionary, but it might be just too unrealistic. And those are the balance that we needed to do in the whole region. So something that at the end, we can actually go for a grant to try to get a solution there that is going to get us at least to the next phase. The solution that we're proposing, it doesn't preclude from upgrading that at some point to something else. But if we were to put right now at the beginning, like a multi-use path there would be just no budget left for anything else because it's a very long corridor, as you probably know, and it's very expensive. That's a reality. However, by protecting what we're trying to do is just kind of on the side, we have some space, and if in the future there's some big budget to get to build this, it will get built, but there's no grant right now that exists that is going to be able to build that multi-use path from Kelowna all the way to Lake Country on the Glenmore corridor. And I know we want to be visionary, but the reality is also have to be realistic. We need to have plans that we can actually deliver at some point. So that's one end. So again, I totally understand kind of where you're coming from, and we also would like to see kind of a multi-use path there. But if we were to put that in the plan immediately starts not to balance, because we have to be visionary, we also have to be realistic. And I think we did make a really huge effort to try to balance all the needs, and we're providing a solution. Probably it's not the one that you expect, but the reality is if we were to put that, then we start to be, I think we will be kind of responsible as recommending something that is going to take a good chunk of the budget. So many of the projects are not going to happen. So the plan will be probably a few projects. So you just kind of to keep that in mind, like a multi-use path from Kelowna all the way to Lake Country. It can happen in the future, but in the short term, it will be very, very expensive. But again, I totally understand kind of your concerns there, and we try to provide again a balanced solution. On the transit end, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of challenges with transit, the way that it operates and the way that is managed kind of in this province is different than anywhere else. A lot of times when you have private companies running a transit system, you need to have really strong monitoring systems. So you know that they're delivering, that it becomes, but the reality is we're not the ones monitoring the system. It's BC Transit from Victoria. So that creates some other challenges. So you're absolutely right. The first thing that we need to keep working on, and we've been trying to make some progress with BC Transit, is reliability. If transit is not reliable, especially in areas where you have low frequency, you lose your riders. So there's a lot of work for all of us to do there, and that's probably more at higher levels through our mayors and through our kind of directly with Victoria to make sure that I don't know what the solution is. It's like private, not private, but the solution is to get to a more reliable system, and that's a reality. And that's something that there is it's a very valid comment. It's something again that just needs to happen probably at higher levels to keep advocating for more effective. But again, it's not necessarily that it needs to go non-private. It's just like what are the monitoring systems and how we're just guaranteeing that the system at the end is reliable and is fulfilling kind of the needs of each one of the communities, especially the ones that have the lowest frequency. That's a very valid point.
Good. Wrap it up.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the difficulty with the transit thing. I just want to air that elephant because it's an elephant. But I still, you haven't got me on the bicycling thing because, if you're sitting there saying that there's a budget, we got to be responsible to the budget. So my question would be, what part of that budget does anything for any Lake Country cyclist?
Or Kelowna cyclists.
Kelowna. Well, it does something for Kelowna cyclists because they're doing paths in Kelowna. But without the Glenmore connection, they're not doing anything for Lake Country cyclists. So the budget's not spent.
Kelowna cyclists want that Glenmore connection too.
Well, I understand that they do, but what the point I'm trying to make is that $85 million budget that would get eaten up by a multi-use pathway, if too much money spent on the multi-use pathway and it doesn't get done, where does that money go? Where is it going to? Anything that benefits a Lake Country cyclist? Because it isn't.
George, but the budget, it's not a provincial budget. It's everybody's. It's each one, because we don't have like a TransLink, for instance, that will pay for those. So at the end, it's our budget. Like it's Kelowna's budget, Lake Country's budget. So if Lake Country decides to, and that's what it's like, is that freedom. Like it's not precluding from building something much better in Glenmore. The question is, it's probably not realistic that any of us, not Kelowna, not Lake Country, is going to have the funding to build that. That's the whole thing, because it's not that it's a provincial funding that is going to be coming, and a grant. I mean, the grants that we get, a good grant is $1 million. So just to get an order of magnitude, the budget is not that budget is coming from the province; it's our own budgets. So it's their own budget from Lake Country. So if Lake Country decides that, you know what, the recommendation from the plan is to improve Glenmore, but we think that we want to go to the next level, Lake Country, of course, the plan is not precluding that from happening. And that's something that we all know that Glenmore is important. The thing is, it's a big budget. And everybody's, the budgets, again, it's everybody's budget. It's like everybody is responsible for the little pieces of this plan. And with some grants, but again, the grants are usually not in the tens of millions for active transportation. Grants are usually $500,000, $300,000, and that just helps to build kind of smaller connections. So just kind of to put things into context, and that's why, again, I don't understand your frustration, but it's a very difficult balance into what is realistic and what can help us to move us in a direction that provides some solutions. And if Lake Country decides that, you know what, we really want to invest more in Glenmore, I don't think the plan precludes that from happening.
Thank you. Mariah had a hand up too. I think she'll jump in.
Thank you. Yes, just to highlight a couple of points. So 3 of the key recommendations that would service Lake Country cyclists, connecting the Okanagan Rail Trail, connecting the Palmwash Parkway to the Okanagan Rail Trail, and the improvements along Glenmore Road, are considered important enough that I just want to highlight that they're actually in both plans. All 3 of those are in the Regional Transportation Plan, as well as the Regional Bicycling and Trails Master Plan. And I don't want council to get too hung up on the high versus medium priority. Like when you're looking at that appendix map in the RBTNP, I mean, what that's really indicating is just that, hey, these are all, I mean, they're all priorities. They wouldn't be on the map if they weren't. It's just a tool to help kind of provide an indicator of if you need to take your first step, where do you need to connect first? And of course, the Okanagan Rail Trail, it's so close to completion. We know that little segment is very challenging, but just because that is the spine, it's designated as the high priority. But medium priority doesn't mean that it's not important or secondary or somehow not in the plan. I mean, we could write a fantastic grant application showcasing that that project is in both the RTP and the RBTMP as a priority project. So don't get too hung up on higher and medium. And if it is a problem, I don't see a big issue changing it if it makes council more comfortable. Just to share in terms of the priority. I mean, it's just indicating really that, you know, the rail trail is almost complete. It's the regional spine. And if you can get that piece, do it, because then Lake Country has a very nice, safe, convenient connection for all ages and abilities from Lake Country straight into Kelowna. And we're so close there. It'll take a lot longer to cobble together a multi-use path all the way down Glenmore. And that could certainly be done, but perhaps it's maybe not a 20-year vision, maybe more like a 50-year vision, just in terms of the realities of implementing something like that along the full 8.6 kilometers, which is really long, to get complete. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, and Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. I have to echo my fellow councillors' concerns because I really don't see what it does for us here. And as somebody who's just had a daughter that graduated from UBC and got a free bus pass, she tried to use it. You know, like I say, it's free because that's part of your tuition. But she drove her car so many times because that bus just wasn't reliable. So now they've taken it right out of the Oyama loop, so it's not even an option now. So that's one thing I'm very disappointed to see, and you're not going to get the numbers if you don't provide the thing. That's plain and simple. That's a no-brainer to me. As far as the bike lane goes, 8.6 kilometers. We just did a rail trail, you know, way longer than that. You know, there's more than one way to get there, and without it being on the plan like a proper trail, that's not going to happen, and it really provides nothing for Lake Country. So I look at this and go, this is, you know, this is not regional. This is a Kelowna plan, and I think we need better. I think we need to demand better. We need to get something that actually works for Lake Country, and you're not going to get it on this. You know, we read this, what we heard slide, and it says quite clearly, create a safe and convenient bike and trail network. Well, there's no safe coming from here right now. And, you know, I rode a road bike and I ride a mountain bike, and I'm not taking my road bike onto the rail trail. I want to take it on something with pavement, and I'm taking my life in my hands going on that road there. We get told that UBC is going to expand by, you know, thousands of students over the next, you know, decade. You know, if that happens, and we're so convenient for where people need to go and people need to live, that you're going to have students that are going to be going back and forth. And unless we do this and really focus on this, we're going to be behind the 8 ball, and we're going to have a problem here that, you know, right now we can try and address. Waiting for a decade or 2 decades down the road when, you know, this system fails is not an option. So I'd like to see better on this one.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I support all the comments that our councillors make, and I would note from the plan that half of the Glenmore Road is allocated as a multi-use trail up to the point where it gets to kind of the Kelowna main urban boundary, and then it switches to a bicycle accessible shoulder, which the document actually says bicycle accessible shoulders are not a desired facility if posted speeds are greater than 50k. So the second you get on that Glenmore Road to speeds which are over 50k, at that very precise moment, the plan changes it to the very thing it's not supposed to be. So I agree. I think we're not getting, Lake Country's not getting the value out of this plan, and I think Councillor McKenzie makes a very great point about UBCO, but it's actually precluding us to provide a home for those students. And if we do get a student and they do have an accident on that road, I worry about it, and that's a very likely possibility. And I think we should be thinking for the future and trying to to aim to get that as a top priority, which it sounds like we can, and to seriously look about the quality of the road surface that we're putting in there.
Okay, thank you. I'll take Alberto.
Actually, Councillor, the youth councillor, Cassidy is here. She'd like to say
Cassidy,
something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Is there a microphone for her?
She has to use that microphone.
I just wanted to mention, I agree that the
You have to
Glenmore.
state your name for the.
Oh, sorry.
record. Thank you.
Cassidy Gunn, youth councillor.
Thank you.
I believe that Glenmore should definitely be a priority, but if we are focusing on making trails rather than making it pavement, I believe that we should try and eliminate access for vehicles. A little while ago, I was almost hit by a car that was just driving on the rail trail, and I had to pull my dog off the road before it got hit. There's lots of access, whether just on the roads or just on sides. Sometimes it's a little bit extra wide and vehicles are able to get on.
Great, thank you, Cassidy.
Thank you.
Okay, move down. All right, now, two more speakers and then we'll move on. Councillor Scott.
I'll be real quick because I'm sick and tired of talking about this for the last 15 years of my life. I would like to refer to Councillor Ireland's elephant in the room. I've offered solutions to this before. I think the contract between Peachland and Vernon, which is all one contract, produced about $1.6 million profit per year for the company I worked for. Now, that's an unsubstantiated number. That comes from my union, so it could be right, it could be wrong, but it's not too far off, I'm pretty sure. Solutions, if we don't decide to run transit as a group or as a community, if we continue to contract it out, my solution has always been make these contracts performance-based. It's as easy as that. And why we won't do that, I don't know. But if we had a performance-based contract where the contractor makes less money based on his performance, then I think you would see improvement in delivery of service. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Gamble, you're wrapping it.
Thank you. I just wanted to just explain a little bit about the issues that we are seeing in our community, because you might not understand why we are sort of really serious about this issue and concerned. But, you know, we've got a population of about 5,000 people in the Lake subdivision, which is on the west side at the north end of Winfield. We have a population that will potentially be about 5,000 in Lakestone, which is on the west side of the community. There is a southwest Winfield development that will, in the next 20 years, develop. That will no doubt be around 5,000 people. Right now, our population is 15,000, approaching 15,000. There are at least another 1,000 people, maybe 1,500 on the west side of the community. The majority of our community is on the west side. I think it was raised before, but just so you understand, because we're not trying to be difficult. You know, we're really interested, you know, in what's best for the community. And, you know, UBCO, now that the John Hindle Drive is through, is a perfect link. It's a wonderful link. Even, you know, a link to, you know, other facilities that are in Kelowna, because it's a good link. And so for us, Glenmore is extremely important. And I just wanted to point that out so that you get, you know, that's where we're coming from. There are reasons why we see this as being really important. And the other side is different. For us, the rail trail is much more of a tourism attraction.
Okay, thank you. And Raphael, thank you. If you want to wrap up, I'll let you do that.
Just want to try to, for us, kind of to take note, still we haven't finished. There's two issues that I just want to kind of separate, because one is transit, and I don't think what we have today in transit, I mean, there's a lot of challenges, but the plan is actually calling for better transit. So I don't think in transit necessarily the plan is failing, at least for you. I mean, we're calling for better transit, we're calling to improve transit. There is some contractual issues that's absolutely, I mean, performance-based transit, that's something we need to think about. But I don't think that's what what I'm hearing that the main issue is. Again, today is a challenge, but definitely the plan is asking for more transit. On the Glenmore end, it's something that we're going to have to go back probably. I mean, I don't know, like we're going to have to see what it means exactly that. But I want to separate the two issues because I'm hearing that is transit, what we're proposing in transit is a problem, or what we have today is a problem. I'm hearing what we have today is a problem, but we're asking for more transit in the plan. And the other challenge that I'm hearing, I mean, what I'm saying, what I think the effort needs to be concentrated is more on the Glenmore end. Is that true?
Yeah, look, we're not blaming you for the transit issue. So I don't think what you're doing is affecting transit in a negative way. Or in any way. I think that the root problem of the transit issue is it's much harder than all of us. But if we don't try to work together on it, we're not going to get anywhere. So yes, I think that your plan with how it addresses transit is fine. I just think we wanted to address that there's an elephant in the room there about transit, because it's going to be hard for it to get better, no matter what you and I would like, if we don't change how the system works at the top. So, you know, that's a bigger problem.
And the other issue is the Glenmore, and I agree with all the councillors that it really has to be a priority on the plan to make it a safe route for cycling, and especially from UBC to Lake Country, whether it doesn't go all the way to downtown Kelowna. But and then if it was safe for that stretch, you can connect to the rail trail to get downtown from John Hindle Drive. So Glenmore's got to be seen as a priority, not as a sort of something that can be done. If it takes multi-millions of dollars to get it totally done, then we have to make sure people recognize that that's something we really want to see done, and we want to go after those kind of funds to get that down on that street. But otherwise, it's a great plan. I think by 2030 we're supposed to have better transit, maybe, but I doubt we'll have Glenmore totally safe. But if we don't start now, and I agree with Councillor Reid, safe shoulders are different from a good separation of some sort between a bike lane and vehicle traffic. So, and if necessary, it may have to be that Glenmore becomes a 50K route or a 40K route or a 30K route if it comes to it, and make it a road that it gets a lot of use and it'll get more. Anyway, hate to see it when Highway 97 is shut down. Glenmore becomes a parking lot. But anyway, we'll thank you for the plan, and I think we'll wrap it at that unless you have any final words.
I think it's a few slides coming up. We haven't finished the slides. I think there's 3 more slides, Mariah.
Yeah, we have the disruptive mobility strategy to cover, and then the final endorsement discussion.
All right.
Is that okay? We'll wrap up then.
I didn't have that.
It's quick. We'll be fast here. Just let me know when the slides are up and I'll start.
They're up, Maria.
Okay. All right. So the additional supporting plan to the RTP is the disruptive mobility strategy. And what this refers to is anticipated changes in transportation technologies that will fundamentally change how people get around in the future. And these changes are making transportation more connected, automated, shared, and electric. And they have the potential to provide a lot of benefits to the region. But we have to acknowledge that there may be some impacts that work against our current policy directions and goals as well. And so next slide. In response to the comments we received, it was determined that more clarity was needed in regards to the scope and intent of this strategy to address some common misunderstandings that were occurring. And so rather than promoting new technologies per se, the strategy is intended to help Central Okanagan governments prepare for inevitable technology change, to harness its benefits and to minimize potential drawbacks. And to help provide clarity, a new subtitle was developed. So the full title of the document now reads, "The Regional Disruptive Mobility Strategy, Helping Central Okanagan Governments Prepare for Transportation Technology Change." And in addition, a tagline was developed. "Technology will disrupt how we move around the region. Are you ready?" And these changes, among other small edits in response to comments, are really intended to help people understand that this document is a resource guide for Central Okanagan governments to pick and choose the tactics and actions that work best for their community to prepare for transportation changes that are on the horizon. And the final version of the strategy is also on the Smart Trips website. Next slide. So moving forward, final versions of the Regional Transportation Plan and its supporting plans are being presented to each of the STPCO partner councils for endorsement there were presentations in November and into December. The schedule there is shown on the screen. And following endorsement of the plan, each council, what endorsement means at a regional level is that the plans would be supported in principle, and that each council would have indicated willingness to work collaboratively towards implementing the plan. For example, by supporting grant applications to fund projects within the plans, or by exploring partnerships that will help bring projects to fruition. Endorsement also indicates the good faith intention of each partner to align future local land use and transportation plans with the contents of the Regional Transportation Plan and Regional Bicycling and Trails Master Plan to the extent feasible. And on that note, it is important to highlight that the Regional Transportation Plan provides guidance on transportation investments that provide regional benefit, and it's intended to support and enhance planning by local and provincial governments rather than to replace it. And so for each of these recommendations, there is additional project level planning and design that will be required before they can be completed. And this is outlined in more detail in Table 13 of the Regional Transportation Plan, some next steps and implementation guidance. And so the final Regional Transportation Plan and its supporting plans really reflect the efforts of working together collaboratively for the first time across jurisdictional boundaries within the Central Okanagan on the topic of transportation, recognizing the critical role that transportation plays in areas important to all of our communities, such as economic competitiveness, air quality, climate change, goods movement, social equity, public health, quality of life. Transportation touches all of these things. And so it is really, it's my pleasure to present the final plans for your endorsement consideration. And we've had some good conversation just now about that. So this concludes the staff presentation, and happy to hear any more questions.
Thank you. Raphael?
To Worship, one question. I mean, I think we cannot go back and rewrite the plan, and that's why we brought the draft. The question is a little bit what Mariah was offering is like, I understand you're not comfortable with how we are kind of framing Glenmore. From our perspective, it's like, well, nobody's, I mean, it's an upgrade and nobody is preventing it to get further upgrades. The question is, if Mariah were to put that, we were to put that in the plan as a priority, is that something that this council is comfortable with, kind of to support the plan? Or there is any other areas that this council is thinking is like, well, we just cannot support this plan? Because that would help us again for us kind of to go back and see what we can do. But one thing that we cannot do, we cannot rewrite the plan. I mean, we were very far along with this, and so we need to find solutions that are fairly kind of pragmatic at this point. But at the same time, the idea for this plan is that helps you as well, kind of to move the needle to an extent. So when I hear a little bit from council, what could be those pragmatic things that we can do kind of to move this plan?
Yeah, I have a couple of speakers, but I just want to say we are looking at it as support in principle and for collaboration on a regional transportation plan is what
Absolutely.
the whole purpose of this regional transportation and sustainable sort of. So it's an important, but there are some things I'm not sure council is ready to endorse in there, saying that Glenmore is not have Councillor Skiro and Councillor.
Thanks, James. You basically said what I was going to say. I'm prepared to support the plan with the exception of the bike path section. And if what you had said, where you could reword that a little bit to make Glenmore a stronger priority, then maybe we would find that more acceptable. But as far as tonight, my only support will be for the parts of the plan that are away from bike and trail.
Thank you. Councillor Arlen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a hard time at this because I want to support it, but I don't support the bicycle plan. I don't see that you actually, in your plan, that you really believe in what you said you used to guide it, you know, and Clean BC and all those things. I don't see anything in there that's really trying to promote active transportation. You know, and I understand we can't rewrite the plan, but I would say that when we were trying to construct this plan, we had these very same comments. So basically those comments were basically ignored or put on a shelf or whatever was done, but they're not incorporated at all. There's no movement whatsoever. In fact, I think it was a step backwards to have Glenmore show as a medium priority. So I'm really struggling. I mean, I want to support it as a whole. I do believe in working regionally, but I just don't see that this is a regional plan. Not for biking.
Todd or Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm of the same mindset. I just can't personally support this without that Glenmore thing changed. So I would be the same as what my fellow councillors are saying.
All right. Councillor.
I'll just add my voice to that, and I think it is important because this is a regional collaboration. So Glenmore Road is City of Kelowna, so we need buy-in across the regions. This is going to be a plan that benefits all of the partners, and I think without getting that buy-in from everybody into prioritizing Glenmore Road, we're not delivering to our community what they need. And I do echo Councillor Arlen's comments. These are not new comments. These were things we've been talking about from day one. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I do think it does deliver for other communities, and you know it lives up to its promise in that sense. So I'm looking at it from a very narrow-minded focus. I'm looking at it from the benefit to Lake Country, and I think that's our job here. So not to throw out the entire baby with the bathwater kind of thing, and to look to the strong points that it has for other communities. But I think from where we're coming from, I agree with all my other councillors. It's not delivering to our community what we need and what the plan says it would.
Do you want to?
I'd just like to say it's not just Lake Country. We're not benefiting cyclists. We're not benefiting cyclists. It's a main route, and we're not making it better. I mean, my son used to ride that on his road bike to go to university because there was no, well, he couldn't ride on the rail trail side of the highway. And I used to live in fear every single solitary day because he was going to ride one of those two routes, and neither one of them is safe. So it's not just our community. This is Kelowna too. This is everybody who rides a bike. And let's not forget that the biggest single selling recreational item this entire year has been bicycles. Bicycle sales are off the charts. People on electric bicycles everywhere. You couldn't buy one in September. Yet you can't go anywhere but just in Kelowna or just in Lake Country.
Who? Somebody else? Oh, Penny?
I have had my hand up. I don't know if you could see it.
No.
I want to support the plan in principle, but, I really feel that it is important that this go back and that the partners consider what we're saying. I do think this was raised quite clearly when we met last, and I don't think it was taken seriously. I would like to, I don't know if you're prepared to take it back, but if we are really intent on having regional collaboration, then it would seem to me only fair that this be brought back to the other partners for their consideration. And then in truth, we have some real collaboration going on. We are the 4th out of 5 partners to have the presentation. All of the bigger ones have had the presentation, and I see Peachland is last. Of course, there are about 5,000 people. And so it just seems to me really, really important. I know, but if we're trying to do an actual collaboration, then we really need to have this looked at. If it was just a done deal that it should be rubber stamped, that's not really appropriate when we raised the concerns before.
Okay. We can receive it for information and ask for some clarification on Glenmore as a priority active transportation route.
Maria has her hand up.
Right? Yeah.
Just a question, and I have to defer to Raphael in terms of process, but if there were to be a motion on the floor if we were to show Glenmore as a multi-use path and as a high priority, I don't have an issue with that. If the council were to consider endorsing the plan with those additions, would that be something? I don't know, Raphael, if that can be what your thoughts are there.
Your Worship, just one thing is the scheduling of the meetings, just like it doesn't depend on the size of the community. I mean, we ask everybody at the same time and we just get in the agenda. It's not that the bigger communities go first. That's something that's not intentional. I just want to put that clear. Everybody has the same voice. Second, that's absolutely possible. Right now, the plan is there. It's a visionary plan. Endorsing means supporting each other. If we can make some additions to the plan, we can again discuss and work with your administration to see if, let's say, putting Glenmore as a higher priority. So if there's an opportunity kind of for a grant there, again, it's not that, again, the plan is not precluding, but again, if you think that helps more, kind of that case, is absolutely something that we can try to do. Again, discuss internally with your administration and bring it back to council, or if you are willing to endorse the plan with the caveat that Glenmore gets as a higher priority, is something that we can also kind of then work back and then send that final version to you, because that's something that is also possible. So we don't have to go again to every single member, because if we were to do that, then we can be talking about probably another 3, 4, 5 months of process. And the idea is that, and that's what I was asking, like, just trying to identify what are really the issues, because if the issue is Glenmore, that's something that we can kind of bring up in priorities if that satisfies this council.
That Councillor Scarr.
Well, that's great. If you could change that, I'm sure it would satisfy some of our concerns, but my concern now extends to Kelowna. You've already made your presentation to the City of Kelowna, and I imagine they've already adopted and accepted this plan, and we're changing it, and we're changing it in relation to Kelowna. They would have to participate and be part of that change. So I think you would have to go back to the City of Kelowna and ask them their thoughts on our demands, or whatever you want to call those things. Our desires, that's a better word. Thanks, Jim. So anyway, I don't know if that means a motion tonight is appropriate based on the changes that you have spoken of, and how we could involve Kelowna in that decision.
Your Worship, this is a non-binding plan. This is a voluntary partnership. It's a plan that we agree at the end, we endorse in principle, and then when we have our local plans, they get aligned to the plan to an extent. So it's not like, because the STPCO at the end is a voluntary partnership, so it's not that, and again, the plan is not precluding to take Glenmore to the next level. It's just, it goes back like, when we put the reality of the costing, it just has to be evaluated. So Glenmore still is a priority, of course it is. The question goes back like when the funding is available. So back to all this, it's like, this is not a binding plan, because again, the STPCO is a voluntary partnership. At the end, it's like, it's a plan that we'll have, we can use it kind of to help us kind of to gather some grants, and also kind of to get a common vision. But the local plans have to align to this plan anyway, and those are the ones that at the end are the more binding plans, each one of our local plans.
Right. So I'll take Councillor Reid, but then I'll take a motion to have a clause inserted that says Glenmore is priority.
I think it would meet the definition of your plan for the high quality the high priority projects are ones which have high levels of support from internal stakeholders, tick, fill key functional gaps, tick, or, not and, or have some funding resources identified. So it meets 2 out of 3 of those requirements. So I think it fits the definition of high priority projects under the terms of reference in the plan. So
you're moving that?
I'll make a motion to.
Okay, Councillor Reid, seconder?
To make Glenmore Road a high priority project with a multi-use trail.
Yes. Or active transportation is through the wording in there.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it can be a different.
Got to be a little bit more than just that.
Yeah, so a high priority project with a multi-use trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
The problem is that if we specify active transportation, that's a shoulder trail in an 80-kilometer-an-hour zone.
Yeah.
That, you know, we all know that where Glenmore safe cycling ends right now is where the 80 kilometers.
How about a safe and comfortable active transportation?
I mean, maybe it's not a multi-use thing.
No.
I'm not the person that's going to
Okay.
design it, so I'm not a genius.
A safe and comfortable active transportation.
Maybe it's separated, I don't know what it is,
It's the intent.
but it's safe cycling. At the end of the day, we haven't got safe cycling. Safe cycling defined by all the things that you put in there to define it.
Or we need to see objective, like what is the intent? Because it's difficult to define right now what is the design standard we want there. What is the intent? If you just said, here is the intent, and then just how it gets accommodated.
The problem is that, let's face it, the majority of Glenmore Road belongs to Kelowna. Our section is very small, so without their cooperation, we're just throwing our hands up in the air, and without you guys actually putting it in the plan, so you presented it to Kelowna, as we asked at the last meeting. I don't know. I still don't think I can support it.
Then is it a motion to defer until the plan's been amended and presented to Kelowna?
No, take a motion now to make it a priority on this plan. And then, because STPCO is dissolving anyway. Mariah?
In terms of the wording discussion, I could suggest perhaps saying something like, a safe all ages and abilities active transportation facility appropriate to the Glenmore corridor. And then that would, that would not indicate bicycle accessible shoulders. That would indicate something like a multi-use path that is separated from vehicle traffic or a protected bicycle lane or something of that nature.
Yeah. All right. You get that wording, whoever is recording? Do you have it, Raina?
I can say it again if you want.
That's okay. We are recording this event, so I can watch the video back tomorrow for the exact wording.
Okay, so the motion is to make it a high priority project with the wording that was provided by Mariah around a all ages accessible trail.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second it? All right. Moved and second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Raphael. That was great. Good discussion. Thank you, Mariah. And wherever he got to, he's back hibernating in Alberta. Yeah, Raina? I can't hear you. No, he wasn't opposed. Did you vote opposed? I thought I had your vote. I recorded it as consensus, but. All right. Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think it's.
No, I know.
We take a short break before we get into the next.
I think it's totally self-serving.
Oh, there is no. Oh, well,
Waste of money.
I was going to say there is no public here, but bylaws. No. Public comment? Anybody here from the public?
Your worship, you don't have a quorum.
Pardon?
You don't have a quorum.
I don't have a quorum.
Yeah.
You guys, run. We're taking a short break then. 2-minute break, 3-minute break. Okay. We spent all that time. Are you there, Penny? Okay, we've got quorum.
I am.
We'll reconvene,
All good.
regular council meeting. For December 1st, and to public comment. And second time of asking. There to speak. We move on to development related application with public comment. The first one is deferred. You didn't let me finish.
Got it.
And the development permit with variance for Granite Road. You're up, Blessy. Thank you. Scary moving and rattling on.
Good evening, Council, Mayor and Council. This application is a development permit with variance on Granite Road, and it is for a single family residence. The OCP designation is urban residential, and the zoning is RU1 single family dwelling. The slide shows the location of the property, which is 0.22 hectares in size. An aerial of the property as it exists. Another aerial showing the topography of the site. A side image from the west portion of Granite Road looking up. This shows the site plan with a single family home, an attached garage, pool, and access. And the illustration on the right shows the hillside DP area coverage. So it shows that it is only for a portion of the property and doesn't actually touch the home. The applicant is requesting a variance to the rear yard setback due to the constraints put on the site by the charges registered and title, and also the unique shape of the lot. The stat right-of-ways reduce the buildable area of the lot. The sidewalk and the pedestrian path wrap around the majority of the property and are both built over the right-of-way on the property. The proposal meets the majority of the greenhouse reduction and resource conservation and hillside development permit guidelines. The requested variances are as follows, and it's from the minimum rear yard being 6 meters to the minimum rear yard being 2.33 meters. So, this illustration summarizes the variance. And just to note, the entire Granite Road is considered the front yard, and so it follows by definition of the zoning bylaw that the other property line is considered a rear yard, which means that the setback all around is 6 meters. If what is considered rear yard was considered a side yard, the setback under the zone would only be 2 meters. These are a number of elevations provided around the entire proposal. 1 story on one side and then 2 stories on the other side. This shows the landscape plan, and the landscape plan only shows the buildable area that is not the property line. On the screen are the CEO comments, and he may wish to address them further. Option A is that the development permit with variance be approved, and that prior to issuance of the permit, $41,250 security be submitted. Option B is that the development permit with variance be denied. Option C is that the development permit portion be approved, the variance be denied, and that prior to issuance of the development permit, the applicant provides staff with a revised set of drawings to indicate compliance with the zoning bylaw, and that prior to issuance, the security be submitted. And the applicant is in the audience and he wishes to address council.
All right. Come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Mark Edwards. My wife and I, Katrina, who I believe is listening in on the live stream, are the owners of 1708 Granite. And I've just got a few additional slides to provide some further context to those that Blessy spoke to. I think she covered it quite well, but I wanted to add a little bit of extra context. Also on the phone we have, if their need arises, available for questions, Jennifer Belkheim, who's with Gibson Contracting, our builder, as well as Ryan Twardick, who's with Artistry Home Design, who is our home designer. So this spring, my wife and I were thrilled to purchase the lot at 1701 Granite and look forward to building a new home in Lake Country. I had some slides, sorry. I'm just naturally trying to advance slides here. I passed out hard copy. I hope everyone has it, and I'll just speak to those directly. The first photograph is very much the same as Blessy showed, but I've just highlighted on that.
Pardon?
No.
That. No, well, she can.
I have it electronically, but I didn't know I had to provide it in advance. But anyway.
The pictures are
very similar.
Very similar.
Yes.
To what's in the staff report. So just the issue with the rear yard, side yard, front yard. Carry on. And,
sure.
Councillor Gamble.
So I'll try and paint you a picture verbally, Penny.
From the building plan, you can see where the roads are and where the setbacks are.
Yeah. So Granite Roads completely surrounds the three sides of the property. As the hillside slopes down toward the lake. One of the unique features though is that kind of bottom third of the lot is a much steeper slope than the rest of the lot. So that's obviously an area that we would want to stay away from in order to have a house that's on stable ground and to minimize earth movement and to minimize the extent of retaining walls that we might have to build. The other feature of note is on the high side of the lot, where Granite Avenue is also adjacent to it. It is essentially level with the lot on that high side, which makes it the obvious entry point for the lot and obvious driveway location. So the next diagram I've got, Penny, is again very similar to the one Blessy provided, an overhead diagram of the proposed home plan. With the top of the picture now facing downhill toward the lake. So anyway, after a little history here, after purchasing the lot, we began working closely with Ryan and Jennifer to plan our home. We started developing plans with a driveway entering where the lot is level, and we also worked to stay as far away from that steep slope as possible, and obviously we worked to stay within the covenant boundaries that are shown in this handout in green. We started that planning process using lot diagrams that the developer had originally established and which appeared to show roughly a 2-meter setback on the northern side or the right-hand side in this diagram. This is shown in a blue dashed line on the handout that I've given you. So we've essentially set the front of the lot at the bottom of the diagram, the rear of the lot, or the Lakeview side of the lot, on the top of the diagram, and the northern side, or the right-hand side on this diagram, we saw as the side of the lot. After making our development permit submission, we were informed by planning staff that because the lot is bounded on 3 sides by one road, Granite Road, that the fourth side of the lot is, by district definition or bylaw, the rear of the lot, and as such is subject to a 6-meter setback rather than 2-meter setback. So I've shown that in this handout in red. So at that time, we were encouraged by staff to seek a variance as part of our development permit. So you can see, hopefully in this diagram, that a relatively small portion of the building footprint encroaches within the 6-meter setback, and that the other aspect is that our plans fit well with all other requirements, including covenant boundaries and the hillside development sightline requirements. We've also developed a full landscaping plan using the allowable low waters airscape plants. And last, and probably the most important aspect to point out, is that while shifting the house to the left or the south in order to stay outside of a 6-meter setback might seem to be a viable solution, it is in fact not. The constraint provided by the covenant on the lower side of that diagram means that any shift to the left also means shifting the house and the pool closer and closer to the steepest part of the lot, essentially bringing us to the edge, and undoubtedly requiring more engineering, more earth movement, and retaining walls, all at higher cost. Now, there are 2 other lots in a very similar situation in Lake Stone. They're on the next diagram, just a block away from our lot. They're showing this in this photograph. In these cases, Lake Stone Drive, rather than Granite, winds around each of 1666 Lake Stone and 1777 Lake Stone Drive. The next photograph is a little bit closer shot. So in each case, the houses have been developed exactly as we were proposing, with the driveway entrance on the high side of the lot and the back of the lot facing obviously towards the lake. And in each case, the homes have been built using a setback from the neighboring lot of much less than 6 meters. I would estimate that each to be about 2 meters from the property line, just by eyeball. So it's important also to note that while we're seeking a variance, similar to those other 2 lots, we do differ in that we will not be encroaching to the same extent or degree as on our next door neighbor's home. Their home is still roughly 20 meters away from ours, even with the variance. Now, by highlighting these similarities, I would like to note that I don't feel that a review or revision of the current side and rear yard definitions or policies is necessary. Ours is the last of, if not one of the last of its kind in Lake Stone's current and future development plans. In other words, this is a very rare circumstance going forward, and it's unlikely one that council would see again in the future. As a result, we feel that variance from the rear yard setback is an appropriate solution. So the last slide, I've touched on almost all of these points already, but I'll just maybe emphasize 2. Again, the combination of covenants and a steep western slope very much limited our ability to shift the home farther to the north side of the property, and doing so shifts the home and the pool much closer to the steepest part of the lot. The other piece that I haven't touched on, and certainly very comforting us as new neighbors in the neighborhood, is that as part of the permitting process, feedback that the district received and that also my wife and I received directly from the neighbors has been unanimously in support of our permit and variance. This feedback came from 5 of the neighbors that are closest to our lot, including Glenn and Candace Cockwell, who are next door neighbors and who would ultimately be the ones most affected by the variance. So we're very grateful for their kind support. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time, and Katrina and I look very much forward to building our new home in the Lake Country.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from Councilor Arnold?
Yeah, just a quick question. So your direct next door neighbors, just looking at the overhead photo there, it looks like there's a pool between
Yes,
So the pool is between your property and their house?
correct.
And how far setback is that pool, do you think?
I did a rough estimate. The center of their pool is still about 15 meters from the closest edge of our garage.
Right, so, okay, that's great, thank you.
Good. Anybody else? Councillor Reid?
Thank you for the presentation and thank you for having your team on board, on the line. I just wondered if Ryan, the home designer, is available to talk to. I don't know whether he's not online. No, okay. I suppose my question would be, I'm surprised the developer hadn't changed his plans, given he's built 2 lots, he's sold 2 lots, which would have had to come to variance before. And I'm surprised, I suppose that I was just wondering what stage did Ryan approach the district, given it is a complex build. You've had to deal with the hillside development permit, covenants, easements. I just wonder if they had approached, your designer had approached the district at the stage of when he was planning the build.
Yeah, he had not. This really didn't come to light until we'd submitted it all.
I would just say,
under those previous assumptions.
Given the complexity of it, in terms of the hillside development permit, which was factored in at the design stage, and that's a district requirement, that there wasn't an approach to the district to clarify what exactly was needed in terms of setbacks so that the house could be built compliant with the setbacks rather than trying to do a variance after the fact.
Agreed. I mean, again, we made some assumptions that the front of the house that you face is the front lot line, and therefore that side is a side lot and that side is a side lot.
And I think that's
so
I would have made exactly the same assumption. Yeah. I would just say that you're professionals. I'm surprised that they didn't approach the district at that very early stage to say, hey, we have a complex lot here. We know it's a complex lot. Let's just confirm everything and just start from a very clear blueprint.
Agreed. Yeah. I don't know if Jennifer's also on the line, possibly, and may be able to speak to that also.
Yeah, that would be nice to know. Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. They both, my wife's having struggles to get online as well, so I'm not sure they're able to access. Anyway,
we'll move on. Anybody else has any questions for the applicant? No. I have to ask if there's anybody in the gallery who wishes to address council regarding this variance. We have a number of letters that say they have no objection to it. I didn't see any that were negative. Anybody in the public? I have to ask 3 times. Is that Councillor? No, Corporate, Raina. Somebody online or phoning in?
Hi, Ryan, do we have you on the line?
Yes.
Okay, you can go ahead and speak to council.
Okay.
Hi, Ryan. My name's Councillor Reid. I had a question around the process. We were just discussing that it is a complex lot with hillside developments, sharp drops, covenant, and obviously with the roadway bounding it with right-of-ways. I just wondered at what stage in the process did you clarify with the district the blueprint essentially before the design was taken shape?
Yes, I'm here. I was watching online here. So when I first was working on the design of the home.
Can't hear you.
Is he gone?
I cannot hear. Can anybody?
No.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Now we can.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
It's breaking up.
Ryan, can you answer the question? The question was, when did you go to the district regarding the base blueprint of the home? So what you were being asked
Yes,
to do?
I can answer that. So when I first worked on the design of the house, I based the...
You're breaking up.
I base the setbacks off of what the development has been showing. It looks like that was initially designed as a 2-meter setback on that side.
Okay. And there's no clarification with the district until you actually had completed the design of the home?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I'll speak of it.
Okay, well, we'll have to let you go because, okay.
Thank you. It's not working.
Yeah. Well, I still have to ask if there's anybody else, pardon?
Gotta wait for the public.
I still have to ask if anybody else that wishes to address council from the public. Third time of asking. Nobody phoning in? No, okay. Need a motion?
I have a question.
Councillor Campbell? Bless you.
Yes, thanks. And this is directed to staff.
Yeah, bless you there.
So I, when I first looked at this, I was thinking, no, we shouldn't allow this. But when I hear the difficulties, and the fact that it is that circular, and I know the property well, I was surprised when the proponent has come forward that we consider that the rear at the north, kind of the north end of the property. I guess because this person is putting their driveway in the most level area, which makes sense, it does appear that that is actually the side of the property. So the side yard setback is how much?
2 meters.
2 meters.
2 meters. So I know it's not, and I guess that is the question. I mean, having sat on the Board of Variance myself before I got on council for about 6 years, one of the times that I would consider a variance is if there's a geographic reason, a geotechnical reason for changing it. And in this case, I am wondering if there isn't, because it's very difficult. If you move the house further down, definitely you're going to require a lot more retaining walls and so on, which is not very preferable in my mind. So I am leading to option C, but I don't know. I'd like to hear what the others have to say. But I appreciate your clarifying that. And I guess the other question, maybe Blessy, you could mention is why do we do that when there's a circular property like that? Why is it we choose that end to be? Because it was straight, or I'm just wondering.
Can't recall the exact wording in the zoning bylaw, but that is how the definition reads, which leads to granite road being considered fully the front yard, and rear yard is defined as the furthest from the front yard.
Ah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Who do I have? Councillor Ira? You did?
Yeah, Bill wanted to speak before Penny, so he can go first.
Councillor Scarrow.
He'll cry on my shoulder if he doesn't go.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Councillor Gamble there. I only grant variances when there's hardship and when, of course, it doesn't affect the neighborhood in a negative way. The neighborhood has shown us undoubtedly that it's quite happy or acceptable to this development. I believe what Councillor Gamble has said there is correct. It's the street. It is the rear yard, and I don't have any dispute for that, and I don't think Blessy should change any of that. And I think it's probably one of the very few examples we're going to have of this. So I'm definitely leaning towards support. But Councillor Gamble mentioned that she was leaning support for option C, which denies the variance. I lean support for option A, that allows both the building of the building and the variance.
Okay. And Councillor Arnold.
Okay, I'm going to move option A, And the reason that I'm going to do that is because if you look at that house and you don't know that we have this strange little rule, that's the side. And in a side yard variant, in a side yard setback, this house complies with that. Now, what Councillor, yeah, it does, 2 meters, it's 2.3. So it's 0.3 on the good side. I'm not a really big fan of whether the neighbors approve it or not, because I don't consider that the neighbors who are there now are who we're actually going for. We're going for the people who buy the house from the people who buy the house the next time. And in that, the neighboring house is 20 meters away. There's a pool between that and there, so pools are generally flat. And that pool is also set back. So there's really no conflict, and nor is there going to be a future conflict in this property. So for that reason, I think that, you know, I don't think we should go bother to change the rule, because as the, actually the applicant said, there's not very many lots that are like this. But I certainly am going to vote for approving the variance for this property, option A.
Okay, I have Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm a firm believer of only allowing a variance when it solves a problem. I personally look at this and a 0.55 acre lot. That's a big lot, and I have trouble that you can't fit in what our rules are, whether that's the front or the side. So I'm sort of leaning towards where our CAO is, that this is, you know, the more of these that we allow, this just keeps coming up over and over as long as we allow this. So I'm personally right now, unless one of my fellow councillors say something else, I'm not in favor of this one, whether it seems unfair or not. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reid.
I'm halfway between the two views here. I feel we're getting a lot, I agree with Councillor McKenzie, we're getting a lot of these variances where things have been taken to a certain stage, and then the information is being presented to the district, it's been reviewed through the correct bylaws, and then it's proven to find a problem, and then we get a variance because the applicant doesn't wish to go back and redesign in compliance with the actual bylaws. So I think we have a fundamental process issue here where things move such far down the line before coming to the district and getting the expert input. And I don't find any fault with the applicant on that, because if I was if I was looking at this from their position, I would find exactly as Councillor Ireland has said, you know, it's the side yard and that was developed. But I do feel that the professionals that we're dealing with, and I do include the developer in that, should follow a better process and should be there to guide the applicants through this process a lot better than they're doing. And I would like to see, if we are doing future development, that these plans, which are then handed to the buyers, are actually going through some sort of process to verify that they're true and accurate in terms of the setbacks. That being said, I accept that I follow Councillor Ireland's argument about the position of it. It is a garage as well. It's not a high use aspect of the house. I would note that the actual entertaining area where you're going to get most outdoor activities on the opposite side to the neighbour. So they are providing a buffer there in terms of the sense of the whole house between their neighbour. So looking at it from that point of view, I am feeling I'm going to side with the motion on the table and agree with that.
All right, thank you. Do you want another kick at it?
Yeah, I just, I'd like to say.
I did have my hand up.
Yes.
For a while.
Before you, actually, thanks. First off, I'd like to say, as Councillor Gamble and Councillor Bill, Councillor Bill, I have these brain farts sometimes, both said variances are there to solve a geographical problem. Now, moving or denying this variance is going to mean a great amount of cost. And I do agree with Councillor Reid. It would be nice to see these things come forward earlier. And I do hold the developer to that account. At the same time, he's not paying the bills. And point of fact, this is anybody who looks at this would say this is a bureaucratic red tape issue, that's the side of the house. And the very fact that this house has no backyard and one huge 75% front yard is ridiculous. And I don't see how you can argue that. I really don't. I'm not, as everybody knows, I'm not a fan of big houses like this, but it is in keeping with that neighborhood. So I think we should support it.
Thank you. Councillor Koza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that, yeah, I agree with what Alberto said, that there's too many variances coming forward to us, and I just think we need to slow these down. Just too many each week, and we're setting a precedent here. And as Councillor McKenzie said, it's quite a large lot, and to not be able to fit this house into such a large lot, I just can't support it, and that's where my stance is.
Thank you. And Councillor Gamble.
Well, thank you. I should have said option A, because that was the one I intended to say. And I often do not support variances, but in this case, because of the difficulty, I think, of locating the house, and because there are so many right of ways and trails around the property that really reduce the footprint that's available for building. That's why I would support this, and the steep slope on the west side, which really limits where you can build. So I will support this.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm in favor as well. I think too many variances might be partly our fault in our application process. I mean, professionals should indeed find out what needs to happen. Our staff should be able to tell them what's wrong with their application at the start. So I'm not sure at what level we get enough for staff to be able to make that assessment. So let's do that. But I don't think we should punish the applicant in this case. And I think there are hardships in building. I would rather see it where it is, but not down the slope or in that rock, or have to break a whole bunch of rock to make a change. So I would certainly support area, and I support the motion. So I'll call the question. Now I have a motion on the floor now. I'd just as soon go for the motion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councillor McKenzie and Councillor Koza opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. And thank the applicant for attending in these days of COVID. And we will move on. So I don't need to hear from the designer, but we do have staff. We do have to see why the process gets us so many variances.
But I would say that the staff saw this when they presented from the information in the report. They saw it as it's finished, and then they advised there was a variance because they hadn't seen it before. So people should be coming to staff with the bare lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
30. All right, we're on to the next one anyway. So, do you have a conflict? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, another development without a variance. You're up, Bessie. Official community plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor and Council, this is a official community plan and zoning amendment for 3130 Berry Road, and it is to facilitate a mixed-use commercial development. So the location of the 1.46 hectare property at the intersection of Highway 97, Berry, and Union Road. The closer aerial also showing the contours of the site. aerial looking south from the highway, and another aerial more from Neween and Berry Road. This is a side image from Neween Road and also showing the current interface with Neween Road. The applicant is seeking to change the official community plan from institutional to mixed-use commercial, and the zoning designation from P2, administration, public service, and assembly, to C1, town center commercial. The property is within the district's urban containment boundary and the town center development area. This image shows the location or the entire extent of the town center development permit area surrounding the site. The slide shows the OCP future designation of property surrounding the subject property, as well as the zoning of this current zoning of the site and surrounding property for context. This slide has the conceptual site plan as provided by the applicant. And it shows approximately 3,000 meters square of retail space and 460 meters square of restaurant space, with 2 access points from Berry Road. Staff does not support the access of Berry Road for the following reasons: proximity to the highway and to another existing commercial site access. The grade of Berry Road in the location of the proposed access is approximately 10%, which would mean that turning movements are difficult due to the change of slope between the driveway and the road, and also for performing turning movements under slippery conditions. And these challenges are only expected to increase as traffic volumes increase in the future. Consideration of access from Neween Road would be supported. This will be considered in the detailed design as part of the future DP and access permit applications. Streetscape improvements on Neween Road frontage would enhance connectivity between the town center and the nearby growth areas in the community through the inclusion of infrastructure such as sidewalks and bike lanes. The vision for Neween Road has been previously discussed at a strategy session in September, and it was to do with activating the Neween Road's streetscape in order to create a high quality and vibrant transitionary space between the town center and the upcoming residential areas towards the Pretty and Lodge Road intersection. And in the case of this property, activating the street frontage is particularly key, given that this is an anchoring site for the vision because of its location and proximity to the town center. The image on the slide is an example of how the development could interface with Neween Road, with the buildings interfacing with and interacting with the street rather than turning their backs to the street. At this stage, the key consideration for this application is the supportability of the land use change, and the specifics of the site plan can substantially change through the process of DP consideration. The applicant will be required to provide details of the form and character of the built form and substantially meet the DP guidelines listed in the official community plan. The land use fits well with the long-term vision for the town center in the OCP. And the proposal is beneficial in terms of life cycle costing, as it would allow for continued development of the commercial base within the urban core and provide for a range of land uses while utilizing the existing infrastructure most efficiently. This application was considered by the Agricultural Advisory Committee, and they did not believe that there was, they believed that there was a low risk of significant impact to agriculture if this amendment was supported. On the screen are the CEO comments, and the Director of Planning and the CEO may want to address these issues.
Your Worship, if I may, those are my comments that are in the report. I discussed these with the Director of Planning, and he has some comments as well. So I'd like to invite him to provide those comments, which are not necessarily in alignment with mine, but that's why we need them.
All right. You will hear from
He's on the line.
Director of Planning, Jamie.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Hope everyone's having a good evening. Just calling in from the Home Office. With respect to this file, you know, when we're looking at it, the file has evolved over time. And at one point, it did go to a strategy session with council, and there was discussion around it being a direct control zone, and that included the land use and potential design for a gas bar. Since then, market realities have changed. The proposal has been working through the processes with staff and technically for some time now, and the gas bar is no longer a part of this proposal. So when we look at this entire area, it's already within the town center development permit area. So when we look at the potential future for this area, I mean, it was never previously considered to be anything more than a school site. Being that it was the home of the former Winfield Elementary. And so it was in the official community plan to be institutional. It was zoned presently to be institutional. Now, when we look at this, if it's within the town center development permit area, it seems reasonable from a planning perspective to see it also be included within the future land use.
Oops, he froze.
Okay, you there? You're frozen.
Yeah.
We can't hear you, Jamie.
No, I think his connection is gone.
It usually reboots.
He's trying.
Does it adhere to that frontage on Ferry Road? And that it would still must meet the technical requirements of the development permit area. So we do want to raise that. But in terms of the overall land use decision and what council is considering tonight, it's really the largest mixed use commercial rezoning, or one of the largest since the town center was created. So it's seen as an opportunity to increase the amount of contiguous town center mixed use zoned land within this area that's already serviced that we can anticipate will see more growth. And its current land use being institutional doesn't necessarily facilitate any further development, perhaps at least not development that would be aligned with council's development permit guidelines. So just some general comments there, a little bit of context as to how it's evolved from a direct control zone to a town center commercial zone, which from a planning perspective seems rational at this point. And to be frank, the removal of a gas bar from the concept is viewed positively from a planning perspective in terms of the creation of a town center that is aligned with council's vision. Thanks for letting me make these comments.
Thank you. Any councillors?
I don't think have we finished the.
Oh, I'm sorry, but finished. Carry on.
Yeah, sure.
Jamie, sorry.
Can I have a question?
Sure. But
Jamie is there.
Jamie's back.
Oh, hey.
Yes. Okay.
Not yet, Penny.
Okay. I wanted to ask two questions. One is.
You're next in line, Penny.
I got a Councillor Ireland first, and then you can, and then you're next.
Okay.
I put my hand up first.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie, just a quick question in regards, appreciate that the gas bar is gone, but in that strategy session that we had, it was gas bar, fast food, and a hotel motel sort of thing. So it looks like from the current drawing that the hotel motel or whatever that is gone as well.
Your Worship, if council does so wish, the council could pass a resolution to hear from the applicant, who I believe is in attendance this evening, with respect to the hotel and current tenancy mix. The town center commercial zone does provide that opportunity for a hotel. That being said, given the time and the changes, our understanding at a staff level is that that is not as comfortably secured at this point. So the decision is more about the land use and would it open it up to be similar to the rest of the town center in terms of land use. Maybe just with respect to like any fast food and so on, because it would be a town center zoned area, any fast food drive-through would not be permitted, but there'd be any number of the uses that would be permitted within the town center commercial zone, which is one of our most broad and expansive zones in the district.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to hear from the applicants here, or do you want to hear Blessy through? Let's hear Blessy.
I'll just.
Your worship, I believe that Councillor Campbell had a couple of questions too.
Yeah, but I'll get to her after we hear the report.
I'll just go over the options presented for council. The first option is that the official community plan and zoning amendment be read a first and second time, and that prior to adoption, a restrictive covenant be placed on title, limiting the access for all future development be from Union Road only. Option B is that the OCP and zoning amendment be read a first and second time, and that prior to public hearing, a transportation study be completed to assess the impact on the transportation network of the amendment. Option C is that the bylaws get first and second reading, and that prior to public hearing, a transportation study be completed, and also that prior to adoption, a restrictive covenant be placed on title, limiting the access from Union Road only. And option D is that the amendments not be read and the file be closed.
Thank you. Now I'll hear from Councillor Gamble.
Okay, thanks. So my first question, and this was, Leslie, if you can answer this, good. And that is the difference between the VC zone and the C1 town center commercial. Otherwise, maybe Jamie could, McEwen could comment.
The C1 zone, the C1 zone has a specific list of uses that the applicant choose from. The DC zone would be specifically crafted as per the site plan that the applicant proposes.
Okay.
Jamie, I don't know if you wish to add something.
And maybe, Jamie, you could say, suggest why you favored the town center commercial, because I think you did mention that.
Yeah, Your Worship, when we look at this from a planning perspective, even right now, given market realities and the uncertainties that even matters like COVID have presented in terms of securing tenancies, the direct control zone, as council may recall with some other direct control zones that they've put in place, is much more prescriptive in terms of form, in terms of like even where the buildings go. It's almost to the level of a development permit type drawing. And so it is like, in this building, it will be a hotel. And in building B, it will be a restaurant, for example. Whereas with the C1 zone, there's a bit more flexibility. It's a bit like, not only is it probably more convenient for the for a developer, at least given some market uncertainties, but also from a town center perspective, it enables us to deal with the development permit and the technical matters at the appropriate levels when those matters are triggered by subsequent permits. Now, at this stage, we're just looking at conceptual drawings and would these land uses potentially fit on this site? And I think when we look at it from that level, it's more supportable given those matters. But the planner, Blessy Zachariah, did get it correct. When the C1 zone is more of a choose from the type of uses that you have there, whereas a DC zone is highly prescriptive. And council may recall from previous DC zones even what that resulted in was about 4 or 5 subsequent zoning bylaw amendments to deal with one, for example. So even procedurally, it's not necessarily a better thing, especially when we have very strong town center DP guidelines that can mitigate any design concerns that council may have with, for example, issues such as interfacing with the street or materials, for example.
Okay, and then my second question is it realistic to require fronting buildings on Neween Road? I like that in the options, but I just want to, is that a realistic thing? Because there's quite a topographic break. And I'm just wondering, when the one property drops down quite a ways. Maybe you can answer that a little bit.
Certainly, and again, the applicant may wish to speak to this as well. It certainly presents challenges versus developing on a flat site. However, to adhere to council's development permit guidelines, it's likely that street frontage or something that activates a street frontage would have to be sought. And just even given the technical concerns around the access off of Barrie Road, it's very likely that again, this is a similar situation to what council may have faced down in the Woodsdale neighborhood last year with respect to a challenging access where technically there were concerns around the safety of that from our colleagues in engineering, and as such it could not be approved. And so it's really important, at least, although we're dealing with only site concept right now, that we at least flag that concern as we move forward.
Okay, and this is just a comment regarding that. I really do support limiting the access to the Neween Road. I think that is really important because when I look at Turtle Bay, the Turtle Crossing or whatever down there, I'm really sorry that we weren't firmer in requiring access off of the Pretty Road, which I think would have definitely made it much easier to adjust the traffic. So I think we should try to, if we're going to support this, we want to look at the Neween Road seriously as the access point. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I agree with Councillor Gamel's last comments there. I do believe we need to limit the access to that top road, and that option C is the one that I support at this point. So I'm willing to move option C.
I would second that.
Okay. I want to hear from the applicant too. If the applicant's available, I have Councillor Scarrow. Yes, it is. Yep, because there's always spoken now.
Hi. So anyway, I've heard what Councillor Gamble and Councillor McKenzie have said about Neween Road, and I'm definitely in favor of having an access off of Neween Road into whatever occurs down there. Eh? But I believe that probably to the western part of the property, or possibly purchasing a church, would make this development much more viable. If they had an access after a traffic study, supporting an access different to what they have proposed here, but to the west side of the property, the higher part of the hill, up and away from the existing terrible access to Dairy Queen, for somehow happened. So I'm not necessarily in favor of limiting the access to that development from one road only. I see all developments like that nature, commercial, what you need an in, you need an out. And I don't see an in and an out happening both on Neween Road, but I do see a potential there for the western part of that property. The other second thing that Councillor Ireland has always trumpeted and suggested is we have absolutely no service for the west side of Lake Country. They have to cross the highway to buy anything. And so this would, in that way, offer commercial opportunity for those of us on the west side of the highway. So those are my two comments, and I again also hope to hear from the applicant.
Okay, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and yeah, thanks, Bill, for stealing my thunder there. So yeah, I too, there's definitely an access problem off of Barrie Road there. For that, I'm sure that the Ministry of Transport will have something to say about that as well. So I'm sure it's not all in our basket. But, as Councillor Scarrow pointed out, there may be other solutions there for this sort of thing. So, a traffic study and, future road study would be crucial for this particular thing. However, I'm not 100% convinced about the DC versus the town center. I mean, I appreciate what the Director of Planning had to say, but I look back at, I wasn't in at the beginning of Turtle Bay, so I wasn't there for that beginning part of setting that DC3 zone, but it did allow us to prevent a fast food drive-through business coming into that area. So it did allow us to take a business that prescriptively out of there because it wasn't prescribed for there, and it was going to change the traffic pattern in an even worse way. So, when I sit here and I say, hey, we want to have the services on the west side of the highway, are we going to get those services if they can build whatever they want? And does that really suit the community going forward? I mean, I highly doubt they're going to build a grocery store over there. That would be fantastic. Those kind of services are the things we need. If it becomes a pot shop and a clothing store, well, not great for our community. So, not great for the west side. It's not I wouldn't say it's not great, but it's not an improvement in essential services. So I'm not sure about the DC3 zone versus the community center.
Councillor Koza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence on this one. The one thing that I would like to bring up is that maybe if we could have a entrance from the south side that is only like westbound traffic, right? Like, you know what I mean? When people are climbing Berry Road, if they turn right into the development, but the people coming down the hill, if there's a meridian there where they can't turn in. So if you had an entrance in there as you're heading up the hill, but not an exit, not crossing the highway when you're coming down, or not crossing the lane.
Let's not try to design it right now.
No, I'm just saying this is something I'd like to bring up at this point too, right? We're talking about only Neween, but I would like to see an only entrance, or I'd like to bring up the idea of having an only entrance on the south side as well. But I do support us going through with having Neween as the primary location to come in and out.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I have a question for Jamie and then a question for the developer applicant.
Let's hear from the applicant.
Can I just ask one question to Jamie and then I'll hold to the applicant? One. Promise, cross my heart. Jamie, did the applicant see the presentation that was made to council at the strategy session in September?
The Neween Road one?
Yes, correct.
Your Worship, I'm not sure if they've gone through that and taken a look at like the meeting minutes or anything like that. With respect to that presentation, it was more of a whole neighborhood type discussion. So, yeah, that included a number of properties and neighborhood level.
I didn't want to prejudge if the applicant hadn't seen it, just to some comments.
Well, Your Worship, there was a presentation made by the planning staff 2 years ago in 2018, when Mark was the Director of Planning on this specific issue, and a couple of options were presented, and those were discussed with the applicant, and so he was aware, or he's aware, that the engineering department would prefer the entrance from Neween Road.
Thank you. We'll hear from the applicant. Reina?
Thank you, Your Worship. As this is a development, an OCP, I would request a resolution of council to hear from the applicant.
A rezoning amendment?
Rezoning.
Councillor Scarrow, Councillor Allen, those in favor of hearing from the applicant, all in. Motion carries. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Ken Harvey, and I'm a partner with Heather Simon Assets. We're a boutique development company based out of Lethbridge. I'm going to do this.
Yes.
It'll be easier to hear. We've been, just for some context, we've been working on this property actually since November 2017. So we're 3 years into working on this property. And we have gone through different iterations and different opportunities as far as zoning goes. We have talked about the C11 zoning. I think that's where the first strategy session came up, where the DC zoning was talked about. And at that time, we had about a 90 to 95% pre-lease on the development. And yes, it did include a branded hotel. It included a national family restaurant. It did include a national gas bar, convenience store with a national QSR off the side, a quick serve restaurant. We also had a general merchandise retailer, and we also had the federal government. And I can't just say what they were planning on doing for the federal government discussion happening. Based on timelines, based on the the different times when we got slowed down on different items, and then 2020 hit, and service industry, which most of what I just described as service industry, took a very big hit. And it's not about not trying to get those uses back. Now it's about trying to have the flexibility that if a use comes up, we can actually deal with it. So that's why we've reverted back and asked the staff to go back to C1 zoning, which meets the OCP, what the OCP was asking for with the town center. And going to that zoning, that gives us as the developer our primary and secondary uses, and we can look through what the council has already adopted for uses in that. And yes, it is a bit of pick and choose that comes along. There is certainly still aspects in that zoning that don't allow us to have things like a drive-through restaurant. That would not be allowed. We would have to come back before council if we were looking to somehow circumvent the process and come back and ask for a gas bar, which would be a very easy, I believe, probably a turn down. But I can hear the staff's concern. I do want to answer the one question about the 2020 Neween. We were not advised. We did not know that the meeting had happened. The first time I had actually seen that there was a the September 2020 Neween Road discussion was actually in the submission that you've received, where it referenced it. At that time, which was last Thursday, I looked back last Friday online to see, and I believe there's only about a 6 or 7 page document online. So I'm not really sure what happened in the September 2020 Neween discussion. Something to understand as well is that from our design grade, because this is a sloping property, that, incidentally as well, the existing access has been used since 1923. So we're about 100 years in for the access that's been there. And throughout those almost 100 years of access, school children and now Okanagan Girls and Boys Club utilize that every single day with kids on school buses with little or no negative impacts. Traffic impact study has been completed. There has been comments back. It's been referred back from MOTI. We've been provided with 3 comments from the MOTI on that traffic impact study. Just as 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, we were asked to go back and change the terms of reference again on that traffic impact study. So we're in the process of doing that. So even the options outlined in this submission today saying access only from Neween was a surprise because we just got asked to go back and change the terms of reference on a traffic impact study. So our design grade on that site to Neween is anywhere from 6 to 9 meters above our grade. So by not having any access onto Barrie Road, we're actually complicating the issue. And it's nice to have a picture that shows maybe some interaction with Neween Road. It's just not possible. When we get to 6 to 9 meters above grade, we're actually going to have sub-basements below. And to have access on a Neween Road, we're actually going to have to utilize that whole length of Neween Road that we have, our frontage on a Neween, for a road coming down, a road access that actually is, at times, could be steeper than what Barrie Road is today. So where we have proposed, and Councillor Scarlett brought up about moving the access, and actually this came out of I just have to look back at the date just to make sure I get the date correct. I'm sure it was the February 19 is when the strategy session happened. That was talked about the DC. We didn't know about that strategy session, so we were invited back in March, and we came and met with you folks in March of 2019. And at that time, it was actually Councillor Gamble that had suggested that we move the access, or our alternates access, west on our property, because we had it actually where the right in, right out is. We do have just a right in, right out where opposing the Dairy Queen access because of the negative interactions there. And so we moved that access to the west, to allow us to have a safer access. The grade, actually, when we've looked at that grade at that access point, is about 6%, not 10%. Our access road up to Newing will be anywhere from 8 to 11%, depending on where our final grades come in. The other thing that the access onto Newing, which again, for protective services, I can understand where they would want to have 2 accesses, and we do understand that. But when we look at what would be a satisfactory grade for emergency services to come in, it's not 8 to 11%. If we get an icing event or snow event, our access off of Newing, which is basically a hairpin turn off of Newing, becomes a very dangerous situation. So we're trying our best to, bring an economic development to the community of Lake Country. Again, we've been at this since November 2017, and we're just trying to find the best way that we can to bring forth something that would give some certainty to the retailers and the different retail uses in the hotels and whatever else we talk to, some certainty that they could come to Lake Country and build in short order. And part of it was, again, the delays is one of the reasons why we lost a lot of our tenant roster, and certainly 2020 kind of put the end of it. So.
Okay.
Can I ask my question?
Yeah. No, but Councillor Scarrow has hand up previously. So.
I will defer to Cara.
All right.
Thank you.
I don't understand that, but
so my question to the applicant would be, I think you need to look at that strategy session because what the proposal is the concept plan doesn't meet the requirements of that strategy session in terms of a pedestrian-centric environment. I really do applaud the removal of the gas bar, but we still have a predominantly car-centric development that you're proposing to us. I noticed there was the word promenade written on there, and I did check the dictionary because maybe different between English and British and Canadian English. Sometimes these things are, but it does seem to mean a paved public walk, a place for strolling, and that is not a place for strolling. It is a scuttle across every kind of crossing from one point to another to avoid the cars. So I was in support of the C1, but I appreciate Councillor Harlan's comments about being able to control what's in there for the benefit of the community, and I'm kind of leaning back towards the DC, but I would like to see if we do go to public hearing that the community is presented with something that is maybe more advanced than the concept design that we're seeing, that actually meets perhaps closer to the OCP and to the vision for the neighbourhood, because at the moment, to me, it doesn't deliver on what we are hoping for that neighbourhood in terms of pedestrian-centric rather than a car-centric development. And from what you've said, it sounds like there isn't. Newing Road is kind of off the table for you guys. So I think I know there was a comment in the report to speak to get any traffic study through with the staff, and I think that would be something that I would strongly support. I think the MOTI look at it from the point of the highway. They don't look at it from the point of view of Berry Road and the community. So I think we do need to look at it from that point of view. But my question would be, how fixed in stone is this concept plan?
Well, this is just a concept. We backed off of what what we had before was more detailed because we knew what our tenant roster was. So this is just reflective of what would be allowable under a C1 zoning. And so it's not very prescriptive because we are just adhering to the actual zoning, which inside of that zoning, especially the C1, there's a very heavy requirement for design as we move forward. So this is just a example. We can change iterations 25 times or provide 25 different iterations. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what gets built. So when you have zoning that runs with the land, council previous has already said, here's what our C1 zoning will allow. So here's our primary uses. And if we don't have a primary use, if it's a secondary use, I would have to come to council and say, here's my secondary use, would you accept it? And so the site plan, easy to modify, would it be reflective of what eventually would get built? I can't say that standing here today.
No, okay, it just would be nice if that could be something that was more developed by the time we went to public hearings, so that the community, when they're approached about this zoning, actually have some clarity about what is actually going to look like when we get there, because at the moment, this is not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not conformant with the vision of the OCP for the neighborhood. So you're presenting a zoning request, but with an incomplete picture of what it's going to look like.
No, that's not that. It's a first and second reading of the zoning, and then the land uses that go in there come before the public hearing comes.
But the concept plan for what will be built on that zone
No,
would be.
has nothing to do with the zoning.
Okay, I'm just saying if it would be more.
Your Worship, the Director of Planning has some comments.
Yeah, okay, let's hear from the Director of Planning. Don't forget.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council. This is really valuable discussion. I think maybe just quickly a comment on the site concept plan. It's an interesting requirement that we have in place. It's often held with zoning applications, not just in our community, right? But quite commonly in development processes. That being said, when we're looking at the land use change, the site concept is just a site concept. It in fact hasn't even been fully assessed in terms of whether or not it meets the town center DP guidelines. I can tell you, looking at it, I have concerns whether or not it meets the town center DP guidelines quite strongly, as we have flagged with the access concerns from the engineering perspective. So the site concept would have to evolve quite substantially. And that's why I think it's really important that when we're looking at it, it's about what is the potential future use of this property if it's not institutional. And it's not institutional, at least in terms of ownership and function right now. So the high level question is really, what's the suitable future development potential of that property? And with respect to having like DP level drawings at this stage, council can always require those kinds of things. However, we've even as a planning group received presentations from some experts in law recently with respect to requiring these concurrently. And the recommendation is actually to not require land use decisions made at the same time as development permit, which I get is a challenge because we want to see whatever is built or whatever is proposed in concept actually built to some extent. But I think that to help council visualize the potential of this site, it really is about going back to those town center DP guidelines and looking at the the activated street frontages, the pedestrian centric type development, the mixed use type development, multi-story development, and so on, that council has envisioned for the rest of the town center, which does need to be fleshed out through future more detailed design exercises. So that's just some general concept. I know it's not an easy position to be in terms of that, but it does help paint the picture maybe a little bit more in terms of process. Also, just a quick comment with respect to the Newing Road strategy session. That was basically a check-in with council in terms of council. Do you want to see it look as you currently envision it in your policies? If it's within the town center DP area, are you comfortable with that? And the key consensus out of that was we're fine with what's in the OCP. So I do just want to go back on to comment on those two matters.
Thank you. Councillor Ireland? No. Was he? Okay. Not according to me.
Geez, he had a hard time keeping order there, sir. You would like me to keep
you're all
it?
over the map, you guys.
Ken, thank you for being here. Ken, I would like to ask you, have you investigated whether there's a church for sale in your area? Because I believe your major problem, I buy what you say off Newing Road. I'm buying that, okay? That the construction on the higher part or your frontage of Newing Road would be very, very difficult. If you owned that little church up there in the corner that has just a spittance of land, that would improve your opportunity there greatly. Outside of that, all I can see is you were telling me that your access, the existing access to the Winfield Elementary School has been in existence for 100 years. Well, I haven't. I've only been here for 65, but I did go to school there and I have lived here all my life. And I can tell you I've seen 3 people die there and many, many accidents. So no, it's not safe the way it is. And to build something that's not safe and then to rebuild it again, still not safe, is something I'm not prepared to do. So you need to find a solution for access to your property. One of them I offered, which was moving it west. That's only one access. I believe you need 2. And I think you should investigate whether or not there's a little church up there for sale.
Okay.
So to answer the question, no, we haven't asked if they're for sale. The reality is on a technical basis, their frontage is very small on Barrie and on Neween. And so even by utilizing their property, our access is probably too close to the Neween intersection to have full access onto our property. This is part of the challenge we're having currently right now is, how do we have access that, yes, is safe for the existing? My point on it's been there for 100 years was not that it has never had any negative interactions, because it certainly has. When we go through and redevelop it, it in theory makes it safer, and that's where the traffic impact study comes in. Now, I'm not a traffic engineer. I am, a developer, so that's why I leave that up to the experts. But that is a challenge with this property, and it's a challenge with any economic development property, is how do we find the balance? How do we strike the balance between what would allow me as a developer to go find retailers, and to be blunt, to have them today go out to a road as a primary access stop in Neween, we just won't find retailers that will go there. Because Neween does not go anywhere today.
I just kind of, in my own head, I just kind of wonder if maybe we're looking down the wrong street here. Maybe that piece of property is more for residential type of a development rather than a commercial development. I know if you're interested in doing a commercial development, the next thing you're going to be asking us for is to bring it down to the highway grade, which will increase the grade from Neween Road.
No, that's not. Our design grade currently right now is where the playground is at. So we basically split. When we talked to staff, one of the very first things was told us, and this goes back into November 2007 when I had sat down with Jamie McEwen at the time, who was the planner, and Mark Koch, who was the manager of
the other guy.
Yeah, where now Jamie is. One of the very first things that was brought to our attention was we don't want to see a sheer wall like we have in Turtle Bay. It wasn't appeasing to the public. My understanding was not. Staff did not like that huge wall. Council did not like that huge wall.
And it cost a ton of money.
And it probably cost a ton of money. So we tried to strike a balance, and that's when I say design grade. Our design grade, if we went down to the highway with our grade, Neween is almost 20 meters above us. Which is just, you would not be able to have access at all, and the sheer wall would just be, well, we're not going to go there. So we struck a balance on the land and said if we just intersect it, and it's about where the playground, it's as simple as, it might be point something meter high or low from where the existing playground equipment is, but that's where we struck the grade to be.
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple comments and some questions. First off, yes, that road has had that entrance for 100 years. There's a whole lot more people that live over there than they did 100 years ago, or even 10 years ago. And in 5 years, there'll be another 2,000 homes. And that very road is still to this day, the main connector for the east and west side. So it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem for us. I mean, it's not the ideal connector for that. With the 10% grade at the bottom, it's a terrible connector. I drive that road constantly. And, as much as I'd like to see this happen, there's got to be some more thought. If Neween doesn't, and I believe you that it doesn't work, I can understand the difference in the grades. 10 meters is 10 meters, and that's a big problem. But at the same time, Barrie Road's an incredibly important transportation link between the two sides of our divided community that's divided by that highway. Secondly, like I can appreciate your commercial requirements and you're going out to shop for retailers that will go into these kinds of situations. But I sit there and I wonder if that's going to be the retailers that really make a difference to our community and make our community better. I mean, I think, as I said before, what are those building? What's going to be in? If it's going to be a dollar store and some second tier retailers that really don't provide a lot of value to the community, then I'm not quite sure what we're doing there. I don't know if you have any retailers or anybody, you had a whole slate before. Do you have nobody now?
Nobody.
Hotel's gone completely?
No, they're not gone completely, but everyone's waiting to see what happens with COVID in the world, and especially in the hospital.
Oh, I get that part, but either somebody's nibbling or there's no nibbling, right? Like every time Todd takes me fishing, there's no nibbling. Every time he goes fishing, there's biting.
Yeah. So to answer that question, no, there's no nibbling. And one of the very first, when you get into the multinationals and national retailers, one of the very first things they ask is there zoning in place?
Yeah.
So it does make it difficult. It is a cart and a horse thing. And again, this is something I've done for over almost 25 years now. And I do understand the balance on council administration hoping they know what's going to happen there. But in the same respect, I have the same concern. I want to know what's happening there as well. And which is why we get into the balance of having zonings in the first place. Because again, it goes back to, I'm only really allowed to have my primary uses, which is everything you have on your main street today. Anything past that, I have to come back and ask for permission. So there's comfort in that it gives a high degree of flexibility, but also gives a high degree of certainty because I can't go outside of those, and I can't remember exactly the 20 uses or 25 uses, whatever it is in the C1 zoning in primary.
Yeah, it's a difficult problem. I mean, you know,
yeah, I got.
you're shopping for a retailer, and you know whether that meets the uses down on Main Street, well, or does it gut Main Street and not allow Main Street to happen? So yeah, I don't know where I am with this. I'm right, you know, I'm sitting in the middle. I want to see something go forward there, but I don't see that if we don't provide a good entrance solution, that we should keep dancing. So you know, or maybe it, you know, not to waste any, you know, so don't waste people's money. Maybe it's a deferral until we do find a good road solution, so that we don't have to go back and dig into the basket to find something else.
All right, I'll take Councillor Gamble.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I have to say, I think it's important that we focus on whether or not we are interested in moving the use forward, the land use forward. And I'm very supportive of moving this forward as a commercial C1 town center commercial zone. I think it's very important for our community. I've heard many residents say they would like to see more diversity in the community, more shops. The truth is nobody has developed along the town center south of the TD. And that may be more a function of who owns it than anything else. But here we have a proposal, and I believe this is very worthwhile. I would like to ask whether or not the proponent has considered any multifamily residential as a potential component. I'm just wondering if you would be open to that. I'm sure this is market driven, and just wondering, because it certainly was something that we were hoping to see, but we understand it's market driven.
Residential and commercial, or?
Yes, so, you know, like, so live and work.
Yeah.
Live and work in the area.
Talk about nibbles, I guess. Yes, I have actually a proposal in front of me right now. Two actually proposals, one written, one that's coming. One is for a joint venture for residential use in a mixed use development. The other one is actually through BC Health. I don't have the particulars on that at this time. So yes, we have, I mean, I don't have any commercial nibbles, but we have nibbles as far as interest in the site. But again, it comes down to what can we do with the site that makes it viable for all development partners, which includes actually the municipality as well.
But, well, there is a potential for a lovely view. So,
Very
you know,
amazing.
if you get up a little bit, there's a beautiful view. I went to elementary school there. I remember that.
Really, the issue for tonight, Councillor Gamble, is indeed, we've looked at that for commercial residential since we sort of have been on council. We let it go as a heritage site. We didn't try to save it because we needed revenue from commercial, residential, or whatever. So now is the time, if we can rezone it, and then you can do all your planning and deciding and see what we can get there at the zoning, when it comes down to final reading, if we come up with a plan that works for us and works for the developer and works for the community. So I would say we advance this. It's been around for 3 years, and we'll see. I have confidence in the developer that will work hard to get his money back out of there anyway with good tenants.
Your Worship,
yeah.
There is a motion on the table. It was moved by Councillor McKenzie and seconded by Councillor Gamble, I believe, to resolve option C.
Option C?
Yeah.
So,
option C would be that the OCP and zoning amendments be given first and second reading, that prior to public hearing, a transportation study be completed, and then that prior to adoption, a restrictive covenant to be placed limiting the access for all future development being from Newing Road. That's option C. It's currently on the table.
And we've heard that Newing Road is not. Okay, Councillor Arnold?
That's my response to that motion, is that whilst I don't disagree with it, if we replace a restricted covenant about future development and it's not possible and the applicant can't do it, then we're kind of throwing balloons up in the air. I mean, I don't know if that restrictive covenant can stay.
So, Your Worship, the option that would keep more doors, or pretty much all doors open, is option B, actually.
Option B.
Because option B doesn't have any specific restrictions, but requires a traffic impact study.
But just to that, what if we don't like the entrance onto Berry Road? Or we don't like how the access works if we've gone that far?
So, Your Worship, I believe that will be part of the development permit application.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's not going to be, so right now we're just dealing with rezoning.
I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure, because
you will have.
We've lost control of things before that we weren't happy with the results.
So when we get to the development permit application, obviously, we're going to deal with the access to, which has to be basically granted by the Director of Engineering as per bylaw, and also with the form and character and other guidelines that we have in the OCP. So at that point, we will see
all of those things.
The design, the detailed plan, and it's going to be a little more, much more detailed, I guess. So, but right now is, I guess, for council is whether or not we want to proceed with rezoning to C1 town commercial, town center.
And whether B or C.
So C has a restrictive covenant that you have to have the option only to go through Newing Road. Option B actually keeps it open, but be addressed. The issue of the access will be addressed at the development permit application process.
All right, but I have to get rid of the motion.
Right now,
the motion's on the floor. So you have
to vote on option C.
I have a couple of speakers, but I'll take the speakers.
Well, I would just say that I would not support option C at this point, even though I did second it. I would support option B.
You moved it.
I moved it. Okay, whatever. I've changed my mind after the discussion.
But certainly, Councillor McKenzie wanted to speak, and Councillor Kozub, so I'll hear from Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my only concern with changing this then is that road is a nightmare. I would not want to see traffic coming out onto there no matter what. So I can see a road coming in, but not coming out. Like it would have to go either, if it comes out, it's got to go up. You're crossing that's somebody's life is in danger, and I'm not prepared to create another Turtle Bay. I'm glad I wasn't involved in that one because that one's a nightmare. So could you live with a road in and then a road going up the hill or coming out on New England?
It's an option to look at it. That's an engineering question. So I would have to refer that to our engineers to take a look at that as part of the updated terms of reference that's happening right now for the traffic impact study.
Okay.
So we could have them add that in.
So then Alberto, is there, you know, like I say, I'm not prepared to let a road come out and go down that hill.
Mhm.
So how do you, is there, that would be handled at the DP level then?
Yes, I mean,
So we're all good.
the engineer has to present a design of the access onto the property, which will include various options, I guess. I would say that the traffic impact study will not obviously deal with that particular design, I guess, but certainly with the amount of traffic that will be generated on that side based on the proposed design that will come eventually. But right now, the details of that design can only come at the time of development permit.
Okay. So then, not done yet. You know, if this goes through like that, we're not too far at any point in time.
No, you're just changing the zoning at this point. First of all, obviously, it has to go through a public hearing process. So we'll hear from the public, I guess, and then council has an opportunity at third reading to make further decisions, which may include specific restrictions or conditions to the zoning. Yes, you can do that somewhat. I just have to be careful the way I word it because you can't really condition zoning, but I guess you can put some restrictions or work out some details of the zoning within what is presented.
Okay, thank you.
And then if it is approved, they can't build anything until a development permit is presented to council.
Okay, as long as we're covered, I would be good with switching from C to B and voting that way.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy or Councillor Coates?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you so much, Councillor McKenzie, for your comments. I was trying to say the same thing, but Your Worship said I was not allowed to and cut me off and then moved on to the next person a little bit ago. So I'm glad it was got to be said, but no, that was my sentiment, was that I did not want to see another Turtle Bay fiasco where you have cars trying to cross. As well, if there's a center meridian in there, then it totally alleviates people from trying to do that. And from your drawing, I see that you guys do have it's right in and right out. It's the way you have it. The only thing is there's another entrance a little bit up that looks like if people were to come out there, they could go down and exactly what Councillor McKenzie said, especially in the wintertime with that steep road and stuff like that. I would hate to see people coming out of that development and trying to turn left, which means if they do come out of that development, then they turn right, they got to go all the way to the top of the hill. So if they want to go down to Lodge or to the high school or something, they're going to have to, so and that's why I was trying to bring up earlier about the fact that maybe if it's just only an exit onto New Ween and an entrance off of Barrie or something like that, I don't know what the answers are, but I just wanted to bring up those type of things. But I'm in support of this development as a whole. We just got to figure out how we get in and how we get out and not have a Turtle Bay fiasco. I don't know if you know what we're talking about that over here. Yeah, you don't go to Starbucks and even once you get in there too, there's also the way that it was developed too. There's a drive-through where you can't get to the drive-through because there's too much. Anyways, it's off topic, but no, I'd like to see us move towards B and abandon C.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. And this is just a question to Alberto.
Yeah.
In your CAO comments, you mentioned that if a traffic impact study is commissioned by council, after it's submitted by applicant, such a study should be reviewed by a traffic impact specialist of district's choice.
Yes.
So would that happen and the information be provided at the public hearing? When would that feedback from the district specialist of choice come to council?
Well, we have to receive the study first from the applicant.
Right.
And if council decided to add that to the motion,
Yes,
because right now it's not there.
that's where I was going. So
Yeah, so then as soon as we receive the TIS, we'll review it through one of our traffic consultants. And then we'll go to a public hearing with that information as well.
Fantastic. I would like to, if council colleagues are in agreement, add that to motion option B, so that we get a traffic impact study and we have that information for the public hearing.
Okay. And that's there. So we'll have to, no, it's.
You have to vote on the motion because it's already on the table.
The first motion they had was for C, and that is to be voted on first, and if we defeat it, then we can make another motion. So
Yeah.
those were of option C. Those opposed to option C. Motion carries, option C, motion fails. I need a motion for option B. Councillor Koza.
With that addition, no.
Councillor Reid.
Yes, Your Worship, we're going to add to the option B that once staff receives the traffic impact study from the developer, we will review it through a traffic consultant of district's choice for information to be available at the public hearing.
Is that different from the transportation study?
Yes, it's an additional review of the transportation study. I'll figure it out with Rena.
You want to read the motion with the addition?
So option B is that bylaws 1131 and 1132 be read a first and second time, and that prior to public hearing, a transportation study be completed to assess the impact on the transportation network of the proposed OCP and zoning amendment and other anticipated developments in the immediate area. And with the addition of the requirement for a traffic impact study, and once received, it will be reviewed through an independent traffic
Consultant
prior to the public hearing.
to the choice of the district. So basically, we are hiring a consultant to review the traffic study.
Second. Moved and second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ken.
We'll get somewhere.
Stay safe.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
I often get business there too. I wear 6 masks over there.
Thanks. All right, next up.
Yeah.
Well, the next one has been removed, so we don't have to do that. You're up, Matt?
I guess so.
No.
It's dissolved now, so.
Yeah, but should we? Well, because we still got the report to come back.
Everybody else has dissolved it, but this is the final report that they're adjusting, and we'll get that back, presumably. Do you know, Matt?
I had a little spiel, if that helps.
Okay.
I don't have a presentation.
Give
It's
us
more of
your
a conversation.
Yeah.
So I think the options I provided actually are almost a false choice, because if you look in terms of a partnership, it has to be all parties. So we can say we want to be in there, so we want to get something back, but when you don't have a full partnership, it's not really working. So I think you heard tonight, and I heard from council, the partnership right now is not really an authority. It's sort of a voluntary sort of compliance model. And let's be honest, that served its time. I think it worked well to get us to this point. Being part of the regional district, which currently is Mr. Mayor sitting on the board, I think that we're in terms of authority is probably the appropriate place for regional planning. So we have an authority, so it's a service provided. So that's really the transformation. Dissolving is really, it's dissolving the agreement, but it's not dissolving the need for regional transportation plan. It's just taking it to a body that actually has authority. And a lot of that importance is actually in terms of securing funding from senior level governments. We've tried to work with the province and they've been fine, but it's a sort of gangly group of municipalities together. There's no real authority on it. So that's why the recommendation is to dissolve. The dissolution is really not about the regional transportation plan. That will continue with that board. There is a transportation subcommittee presented to be part of the board. Another strong point of this is actually having WFN as a member. Right now, under the community charter, I believe it is, that First Nations don't have the same sort of vote that's possible, and we're looking at WFN as an equal partner, and that's a really big, strong point of this partnership, is to have WFN on that committee of the transportation component to be able to have authority to say, because they are an integral part of what this partnership is. So yeah, I think this is more of a transformation rather than the dissolving of the actual partnership. It's a technical dissolution, but it's moving to the next step to actually give authority to the region.
And there'll be regional transportation demand management that they'll probably reenact or not, but yeah, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's fine to have West Bank First Nations on here, but why is OKIB not on here?
Well, part of it is that OKIB is they have Duck Lake within central Okanagan, but really their main office and main sort of support is at head of the lake. We're approaching OKIB as a stakeholder on this to participate in it as well. This has not been historically a formal partnership because this is a challenging reserve even for OKIB because of the number of certificate of possession holders. So a quasi-private land holding. OKIB only has sort of control over 2 real parcels there. One is right on the corner of Jim Bailey and Beaver Lake, and the other one is a landlocked parcel on the northeast side of Duck Lake. So really it's not a full reserve under the control of the band. So that's been historically why it hasn't really been part of that partnership, but there was discussion with the mayors and chief and the executive to include that.
Okay. Councillor Arnold.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I don't see why we don't dissolve it, but my only comment is that we're handing over one committee that proved to be Kelowna-centric to a committee that has authority that is way more Kelowna-centric. The regional district really hasn't.
Only if we buy into that function.
Yeah, well, let's face the facts. The regional district hasn't really supported anything that Lake Country's asked for specifically for a while.
No, we're not in transportation demand management.
There has been a historical service of transportation demand management going to the board. This will actually be a committee, so it's not a weighted vote in terms of the committee. It is a 1-for-1, Councillor Island.
Well,
so I understand what you're saying in terms of the weighted component. It has been majority Kelowna-centric.
Let's face it, the regional district is not really a regional district. It's a Kelowna. The decision, the mayor's got one vote, and he votes for Lake Country, and Kelowna votes for Kelowna, and not for the regional district. So
I have 2 votes now.
You have 2. Nice.
Over.
Yeah, but not enough to defeat those Kelownites. Anyway,
actually, I should have.
There's no reason not to dissolve it.
I should have 3. We have 1 for every 4,000 population.
4,000, I believe, yes.
Yeah, so I have 3 votes. I can outvote Ellison and.
But just for clarity, that is the board, the weighted system currently, but the intent of the committee for transportation is not to be a weighted component.
I mean, that's great to know because I was going into this, recognizing that we have to dissolve it, but pessimistic in my view of what's coming for the future. But if it's not a weighted vote on that committee, well, I'm still pessimistic, but slightly less so.
Like I said, on that structure of that committee, it was very clearly stated from all partners that the inclusion of WFN, which doesn't have a weighted vote, so it can't be a weighted vote system there. It's a committee to that. I think is extremely important for this region when we talk about collaboration, and I think that's what you're saying is the weighted vote doesn't work on a collaborative model.
Well, no, it doesn't work. I mean, I'm happy. It's great to have WFN in it because they're a strong community member. They're a large amount of land controlled by WFN, and they should have a say. And so it's great that they're involved. But my comment is on the weighted system. It doesn't work for the smaller partners, and we've seen how the decisions are made. That most of the decisions are controlled by Kelowna, and they're Kelowna beneficial. They're not beneficial to the entire regional district, very rarely anyways.
All right, Councillor Scarrow, you moved
Option A. I'll second it.
Councillor Mackenzie second. Those in favor of dissolution? And the motion carries. Those opposed? None opposed. All right, external representations and liaison policies.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I have 3 items to present to council. The first one is the proposed external representation and liaison policy number 182. This is a policy that addresses, I guess, the process with respect to meetings to which members of council or council as a whole are engaged with external agencies.
So moved.
So moved?
I think we've read it. Yep, so moved.
Okay.
You want to get out of here, but move. Seconded. Discussion, those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you,
Okay.
Alberto.
Thanks, Penny.
You're welcome.
The second item is the strategic priorities annual update. This is the result of an annual session that we had with council and senior staff. In the report, there is a summary of the accomplishments of the strategic priorities that were actually accomplished or completed. As a result of the discussion, we have reviewed the strategic priorities list, which was distributed to council, but we're here to find out whether or not you want to make any other changes and have it formally approved, because this will inform our budget process. So we need to know. Tonight.
Okay, Councillor Reid.
I had one question
Yes.
regarding infrastructure services and the separation of the cars landing local serviced area from the water master plan. I'm not sure what that means, because the water master plan is one of the now priorities, and the cars landing local service area is like priority 5 down the bottom. So I'm just not sure what that means.
So the local service area is actually a process that comes from a petition that is done with the cars landing property owners in order to actually build the infrastructure that they need there.
Okay.
So it's a subsequent action that comes out of the water master plan.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
51% of the property owners that hold these 51% of property values.
Correct.
And they can have a local service area for whatever service they want, street lights or water or electricity.
Yeah, we have a bit of a process right now. There is, I think, you know, that we have at least one utility that is going through that process, and we may have to go back actually to council with that.
All right.
I think
you wanted to get something up in the.
So, as we discussed earlier, I would like to see us move our zoning. I forgot what we called it now.
It's a zoning bylaw review.
The zoning bylaw review. Yes. I'd like to move that right up to number 4 on our main council priorities. As far as I can see, with the discussions coming out of the mobility master plan, can be number 8, or I don't see it as near as important as any of those other things. Particularly the zoning plan. This is what we deal with on a regular basis, as we talked about before. And I think it's crucial that we get these changes and make it right to help build our community. And then things like this can inform the mobility master plan. But
okay, so the mobility for tomorrow will be not one of the 5, but we'll still
on the blue sheet. Yeah, not one of the 5.
Yeah, but we'll still be under the engineering and environmental services.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm looking at the council priorities in your actual report. We listed them 1 to 7. And
yes, I appreciate that. Those are the direct ones that council has chosen to be. So I can appreciate that.
In that solution there, I would say that the bylaw zoning is number 4.
Okay.
And the mobility master plan is number 8.
Okay.
Do you need a resolution for that?
Yeah, when you have a resolution to approve the new strategic priorities list, which is option A, I also need whoever's moving this to make that shift
Councillor Ireland moving, Councillor McKenzie second. And a comment?
So, one other thing here, I'll second what he's saying here, but I just want to make sure one more thing here, and I got a question on your IT strategy implementation. Is that to do with what we have with more laptops and stuff getting ready for the COVID?
No, if you recall, we had a strategy session and Dave, our manager of IT, spoke about the IT strategy, which is to implement a new IT strategy, a new IT structure for the district, which includes a much closer online presence through a number of applications that we need to have, which we don't have right now, and many other municipalities do have. We believe that this obviously accomplishes also some of the things that we need to do in order to address working from home or remotely, having members of the community actually access more services online, rather than having to come all the time to City Hall, and also integrate the various files so that if you go to a particular application, you have the whole picture there, rather than having to go to different departments or to different applications to gather that information.
Okay.
It's quite, and that would include also something that we had tried before, but I don't think we had the time, that the time was not right, that we need to review our financial system as well, because the one we have is completely obsolete. So
okay, so just to be sure here, one of our priorities, from what I heard earlier, was the fact that we want to be prepared for this COVID shift, as we might want to call it. So in here, do we need to do that, or is that more on your end of things?
Yeah, that's part of it, because we're talking about laptops. That's an operational thing that we're going to do anyways, because we know that now that we have what we call a remote working policy, or administrative policy, then we need to already start to order tools for people to do that. So we're already working on that, because the provincial government has already given us the money to do that. But I think that this also can be covered with that money. But again, it's part of the budget process. That's why.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's covered in here, because that, to me, is a big priority at this point.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
So I'll second Councillor Ireland's
motion. Councillor Ireland had another comment to make with it.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and yet Councillor McKenzie brings up a good point. Stretching my mind back to the IT strategy, I was, correct me if I'm wrong, but was part of that IT strategy security?
As well, yes.
Because I think, that's something that we keep forgetting about. I keep forgetting about it, but that's a massive priority, security for the district systems. I mean, we still see ransomware attacks. It happened in Nova Scotia last week.
Yeah.
Cities and institutions being held up for massive amounts of money to just access their computers. And we have to protect ourselves, and it's going to cost money, but to relegate that to the back benches is a completely wrong thing to do, because in this day and age, IT is everything.
Yeah. It's a 5-year process. So we're going to start, hopefully we're going to start next year. And we're going to, I think the last year of implementation is 2024. So hopefully, with council's approval, we'll go ahead and.
That's a little worrying, 5 years for security.
No, I totally appreciate that.
We might need to discuss that in the future, because 5 years is a long time to wait.
Motion for those changes?
Yeah, I think the motion is on the table. Was moved and seconded.
Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Penny.
So one more item, Your Worship, is related to COVID-19. I think everybody is understanding that unfortunately the second wave is much worse than the first one. And as you recall, when the first one came up, we responded to the orders of the provincial health officers by limiting the access from the public to public meetings and even to the hall. Since we are now in the second wave and it's actually affecting some of our staff as well, we want to make sure that we protect both the public that comes into City Hall and our staff that are providing services to the public. So I've asked, we've had this discussion, but I've asked our corporate officer, Raina Seabrook, to provide us with a possible motion for council to consider. So if I can ask Raina actually to read that aloud, and maybe we can, probably we need some variation there as well to make sure that we cover everything.
Thank you, Alberto. So the motion is that pursuant to Ministerial Order M192, the members of the public not be permitted to attend open council meetings in person for the following reasons. The number of COVID cases and deaths in the Interior Health Region are spiking. And to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability, open council meetings will be available for public viewing through live streaming, have recorded videos posted on the district's website and other social media channels, allow public comment where permitted via telephone calls or electronic meetings, and that this resolution be in effect until January 31st, 2021. And based on council's previous conversation, potentially adding that in order to protect members of the public and district staff, that all applications requiring public comment be deferred until January 31st, 2021. Those other requirements in the first part of the resolution are as per the ministerial order, where we're required to set out our reasons for closing open meetings to the public and how we plan to be open, transparent, accessible, etc.
Now, in order to be fair, Your Worship, there is at least one application or maybe two that were referred back to staff for discussion that would require some public input if they came to council. I think that there's some sensitivity about those, so we would ask that those applications that are already in stream, because they've been before council already, be grandfathered, and so that you know, if they have to come back to council, let's say on the 15th of December or the first meeting in January, we can certainly do so, obviously via Microsoft Teams or Teams Live, whatever.
Sounds good.
That would be the exception, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there anything that we need to do in terms of the provisions for the mandatory wearing of masks in our buildings?
Your Worship,
we have to attempt to protect everybody again.
Yes.
Our staff and the public. And there's a provincial order sitting there saying that masks must be worn indoors. And in this building is indoors. And, you know, the arena is indoors. So these buildings, people deserve to be protected.
And I do appreciate that, and that's our main concern, at least from my perspective, but I appreciate that council has the same concern. I would say that although we have the authority to ask people that refuse to wear masks to leave the premises, we would be uncomfortable, or it would be uncomfortable for our CSC staff members to basically be very active in enforcing people out. Now, I have to say that we've been so far very lucky or very fortunate that people have applied the order, and so members of the public have been pretty good at wearing masks. But there's also it is very true that there is a portion of the population that do not believe in those things, and so sometimes they actually authority. So I would ask that council give us the permission that if there are difficult situations that we can call the police and solve those issues.
Absolutely. I would not want, you know, the front clerk to have to deal with that kind of person. They have no expertise for it. It's not safe. The RCMP are specialized at dealing with these sort of issues, so absolutely we would want the RCMP to be involved, as should any business that's suffering with these
Is that a separate motion?
That's what I.
Do you need a motion? I would say that non-compliance of the mask wearing could lead to arrest or whatever the police consider it. Is it a misdemeanor?
Rena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can include that on to the bottom portion. So we've got the portion for closing the open council meetings, and then all applications requiring public comment being deferred other than those already in stream, and that staff be directed and authorized to call RCMP for all members of the public not adhering to the public health order requirements to wear masks in municipal buildings.
Good.
So we can include it
all in one
That's
motion.
great. I mean, this is what all businesses and everybody that operates an indoor facility needs to do.
Yeah.
I have Councillor Arlen move, Councillor Todd or Mackenzie second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. So we're down to Councillor, right? That's all done.
Worship, the resolution from the Water Services Committee is for the budget deliberations. They do that every year. They review the capital projects and they provide their recommendation to council.
I would move the approval of those budgetary items.
Your Worship, no, that cannot be approved by council now.
Oh, okay.
It has to go through the budget process.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Did you have your hand up? What for? About what? Oh, can you wait till the budget is discussed? Pardon? Okay. There's plenty of time for that.
I can put it.
Sure. Good. Councillor item. We'll start with youth councillor. Councillor Gunn. Tonight.
Okay, so as for COVID at our school,
Can't hear you, Councillor Gunn.
COVID, as per the rest of the community, has brought down a lot. It's wearing stress on lots of the individuals in the school. It's adding more stress, and of course, people are getting lost because of the advanced teaching. But along with grad council and the rest of the school, we're trying to increase the spirit in the school. We have Christmas week and other just fundraisers to be able to boost morale in a way. I do have a question concerning the traffic control around the school. I believe that we should maybe have some more traffic control during, after, and before school hours, because it becomes more dangerous a lot of times for students.
Yeah, we've heard this before. Yes, certainly there are issues with that. That's a good point. Our bylaw don't really do a lot of that. Yeah.
So I'll take this up with our RCMP commanding officer, and we'll discuss it with him.
And the school district too. But, are you done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Kozu.
Your Worship, you're not going to cut me off this time, are you? Am I allowed to talk? Okay, we always talk about it, and during this time of pandemic, this week, starting yesterday all the way until Sunday, is BC Buy Local Week. So support your local business, and before Christmas, get out there and get out to the markets and get out to the local shops and buy from your local artisans. And as always, promote buy local, shop local, and support local. And in saying that, stay safe as well.
Good, thank you. And Councillor Strong.
I appreciate Councillor Gunn's revelation that something called COVID fatigue exists everywhere, especially in the schools with our young folks. So Billy's very sad. No Santa bus this year because of COVID, of course. But I want to remind this council and this community that the Santa bus usually contributes in the average $60,000 to $80,000 for the Salvation Army and food banks of our community. So we're not going to be doing that this year, and that's going to leave a large hole in those institutions. So I challenge individually every one of our staff, every one of our counselors to make a personal decision to up or increase whatever it is they usually donate to these organizations or the organizations of their choice. These places are having a very difficult time matching their expectations. And the expectations on institutions like the Salvation Army and the food banks are extreme. So please consider a larger donation this year.
All right, thank you, Councillor Scarrow and Councillor Arlen.
Well, thanks to our youth councillor bringing that COVID fatigue thing to light with the students. It's happening everywhere throughout our community. And, you know, we really got to be aware of that in our fellow citizens and think about the students. I know that I've seen a number of students that, you know, in university taking online courses, and right now it's extremely difficult. Because at the end of the day, the profs don't really know how to teach online. And they're not doing a very good job.
You're calling them dinosaurs?
I'm calling them something that I'm not allowed to repeat over this. Yeah, they're just, you know, they don't know how to do it, and they're not doing a great job. And they're, you know, if I was recommending someone this year, I said, don't go to university this year. Don't do it. You're throwing your money away. Yeah, great. That's what my daughters ended up being the manager at Starbucks rather than traveling Europe. That's what she was supposed to do. Anyways, at the end of the day, let's be kinder to each other. You know, the Bonnie Henry, she just continues to amaze me on a daily basis with the kindness messages. It kind of gets you every time, because we've got to be understanding of other people's situations. And as a student, as a young person, I mean, it seems like the end of the world not to do what they're doing. It's easier for us dinosaur type people to hunker down in our houses. Well, you're past the dinosaur. Whatever era that is, it was before. Anyway, I'm rambling. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just be kind.
Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, thank you for that message there, and just a couple numbers that were a couple months ago. Calls to our crisis lines were up 400%. So that's, you know, abuse and addictions and so on. And self-proclaimed depression was over 200% up. So it's definitely an issue. The longer this goes on, the more those numbers go up. So yeah, I do say to anybody, keep track of your family and your friends, because there's a lot of battles going on between the ears that we don't get to see. So I do have, you know, food bank. Usually I would go and bring hockey players and go move stuff in the basements and that, and obviously that's a no-go this year. So, you know, I usually do something for the food bank, but I don't know how you do that now without just giving money, right? So ideas would be always welcome on that. Love the buy local stuff for sure. Firm believer of that. What I need, I have one question actually. Mr. Vader might be able to answer this one for us. I've been asked by a few Oyamian people that if we are going to get a Oyama sign. So what I keep telling them is that we're part of the district. So what I'd be curious on is, I know when I go to Cars Landing, there's a Cars Landing sign. Yes, and I know, you know, there's, when you go to Okanagan Center, I don't see one. So I would be curious, right? Winfield, I don't know where you'd put Winfield. So, you know, I'm just looking for, I'm not going to say we need a sign. I'm just saying, what is the general feel? Because you know, we aren't the most unique in BC that we have wards, and I don't want to lose that. I definitely want us to, you know, I think that works very well. So I like the fact if I go to Cars Landing, I just think it might want to say Cars Landing and then we change it and or add to it and say a part of the District of Lake Country or something like that. So like I say, I don't think it's a huge pressing issue, but I really think it's something there that I'd kind of like to be proud of it. And I think it would be something that just ups our game a little bit. So yeah, well, I just would like something there that recognizes it. Yeah. We're making a tunnel right through the road, but maybe maybe Mr. Vader can comment on that.
Crazy, but no, you could.
I did hear a doo-doo also, Councillor.
Before we hear from.
So I don't know if there was an actual question in there, but what I can say is that the district has a sign policy that I can work with our planning department to see what that means. Really, this matter of fact is a decision of council of. This is not a regulatory sign such as on a highway. I think there's some artistic merit on some of these of recognizing places, but I can work with our planning department to figure out the how and what that means a little bit more.
You might need a resolution for that.
They have a natural there, but they could get the old railroad station that said Oyama Station and just put it up in on the rail trail. But Councillor Reid, you haven't.
Everybody. I was actually going to speak to the healthcare workers who, just to say, continuing to say thank you to their efforts, and retail workers, pretty much everybody who's one of those essential services and is soldiering on bravely in the face of both personal family worries and COVID, and then worries from public and people not wearing masks. So I just want to say that I think from the whole of council that we appreciate you. We recognise you and thank you for doing what you do.
And that should go for all first responders too. They seem to be a lot more on the road these days.
For sure, especially with the snow and the ice, so stay careful out there if it's not snowing.
Yeah, all right. So, oh, Councillor Gamble, yeah, just about.
Oh, yes, I am still awake. I'm going to make it short and sweet. I'm going to say good night to all. Stay safe. Wear a mask.
Thank you. All right. Good night. We are adjourned. Thank you.